We're meeting at the district office located at 9361 South, 300 East in Sandy, Utah. Okay, the first item on the agenda is item A, board meeting protocols. And I am the one to present that. So Amber Shell, I am board president. Okay, so I just want to kind of review our board meeting and maybe some ways to make it a little more streamlined. I have a few ideas. So I'm just going to kind of go through the meeting. I know in the past that we've kind of asked you guys to be here at like 4:20-ish, so we can actually get food and start on time. I'm just kind of reminding you about that. Also board leadership, we are going to give you guys one of these timelines as they've done in the past. So please refer to it. And also I've asked one of the vice presidents to be my timekeeper. So they're gonna try to keep me. So just wanted to let you know that. Okay, so my first idea that I have is I want to change the way we do recognitions. And this idea has kind of come to me over the last few months. I attended actually an NSBA training in the summer, so I guess that was longer than a few months, where one of the keynote speakers just talked about culture and what do you stand for, what do you want to be known for? And he talked about a CEO of a Fortune 500 company that started writing thank you notes to his employees and how that started to change the culture. And so that combined with our keynote speaker at USBA conference, where it was about employee retention. And the number one thing he said that we could do is praise. And so to me, that's like saying thank you to someone. After the NSBA conference, the NSBA president who was here in Utah at the USBA conference, he actually wrote every attendee a personal thank you note. I got a personal thank you note from him, which I thought was really cool. So this is my idea, kind of combining those things. Also looking at our employee satisfaction, that is down. I mean, you guys have seen that, we reviewed that. So this is my proposal, that one meeting a month, we recognize students like we always do. And then one meeting a month, we recognize employees. So I want to ask our principals to write an email of an employee doing something. Like, it doesn't have to be huge. It could be like a teacher bringing some treats to faculty meeting. It could be, you know, I have this story of a principal that I worked with that actually walked a kindergarten home that was lost. I mean, that's kind of a big thing. But it doesn't have to be a huge thing. There's just a small thing. And then we would recognize 5 employees at that meeting. And they don't need to do a video. You don't need to do a video, just recognize them. And I just want to recognize more people in the district. I mean, we have Teacher of the Year, which I love, which is amazing. But there's so many other people. I mean, a custodian, bus driver, an aide. I mean, there's lots of positions that we could recognize if we change that. So then there's a second piece to this. And that is, I would want to ask, so we have do we have 49 schools, roughly about 49 schools. So I want to see if the board would be willing to write thank you notes, 7 thank you notes a month. And so each employee that the principal sends us an email about will get a little thank you note from the board. So the superintendent, he has little thank you notes that are like this, that just say thank you. But I was just thinking maybe the schools we over and we could just write a few sentences. And Jeff actually, communications did a few little mock-ups. So that is my idea with changing recognition. So what do you think about that? Are you okay with that? Hey, Andrew, then this is my part.
So I think that's great. And then the cool thank you note template, can we use those for just going above and beyond too, the ones that are sent in?
Yeah.
Don't write too many thank you notes.
Just for people who need them.
I'm sure communications will give you a supply of thank you notes.
Print as many as you want us to print for you.
And then also the other pieces, I want them to they'll come up with a cute name for this program, cool name, and then I thought maybe I could go talk to the principals about, because I don't want it to be a huge burden on them either, but I mean, they could just write, when something happens, just send us a short paragraph.
2 minutes or 2 seconds.
Yeah. Okay, Mrs.
I
Nyland.
just really love this idea and that's something, I don't know if anyone's noticed, but I actually in my closing comments usually try to recognize a teacher or two. And it's just patients in our office that I ask them which school they go to and if there's any teacher that's made a difference in their life. Because I do think it is so neat to hear those stories and hear the differences that our staff are making in the kids' lives. So I love this idea. And I actually was gonna ask, but Andrew already did, if I could just have thank you cards too, because I really take notes in my office and I have this long list and I always think I'm gonna send an email and sometimes I send an email and sometimes I don't. So I'd love to have a stack of thank you cards.
So kind of, we'll work on all the logistics, but my idea is maybe you'll have like 7 emails in here, you'll have some cards. Just write them and bring them back to the next meeting.
Awesome.
And then we can just send them out through district mails. So it should be too hard. Yeah, Mr. Miller.
Just clarify a bit for me. You've got 49 schools and we'd all wind up writing about 7. Who feeds the stuff to us?
It'll be Jeff.
It'll be you. And
Communications,
will you do that based upon the area we represent?
Yeah, we could start with that. I mean, if people want to recognize other areas,
I mean, if you- yeah.
that's fine too.
I think it's nice to recognize the people in the area you represent.
I
I
do
think
too.
it's also nice to reach out from time to time. I just was wondering where these leads come from.
Obviously, you'll be talking with many people in the course of your duties as a board member. Find somebody as you speak to them that eventually you would like to send a thank you note to. Obviously, that would be up to you. Kirsten and I will generate leads based on submissions from the principals, faculty and staff.
Are you gonna put in the possibility that they could nominate a co-worker, not necessarily a teacher always? But I really think that staff needs recognition. You know, there's lots of in-betweens.
Yeah, I guess all employees.
Now, one idea
All
Jeff,
employees.
might be when we're out on listening tour is just could we just even do a handwritten like nomination box while we're there? Say, hey, if you want, while we're here, if you want to just nominate somebody
Do it.
or something
Although you missed one.
positive, throw it in the box, we'll take it back and get it.
Yeah, that is great.
Because I don't want it, I love teachers getting the recognition and yes, there are more of them. But I think that there's tons of employees out there, the bus drivers, the dispatchers,
I want
the
us to,
nurses,
Classroom aides.
classroom aides. I mean, those people need recognition as well.
It'd be nice to be able to have a way for families to submit too. Because lots of times it's talking
On
to
the
the
webpage.
kids.
we
Webpage,
should do one.
Add something to the formal thing.
just a little thing on the webpage.
I think a thank you note is great, but I don't know that I want to get people nominated to receive a thank you note. That just seems like
Maybe that's what wouldn't be communicated. Maybe it would be, has someone made a positive impact in your life at the school and they write it down? And those, we can use some of those to nominate Apex and all sorts of things, but in the meantime, they can get thank you cards. We're not
To say that it's so that we will write you a thank you.
Just to be
Just say
you're suggesting to be.
star student kind of.
share the good news. Who's positively impacting your kids' lives, you know?
Okay. Well, it seems like you
I
guys.
like
are
it. Do we need to make it
okay
a
with this.
formal motion or is this just?
No, no.
No.
And I did talk to Jeff before, he.
I can tell, 'cause he wasn't
verified that
sure.
It would be okay, it wouldn't be too much work, so.
I actually like this. Gives us a lot of really good insight into what our employees are feeling. And also perhaps some good story leads. Somebody might tell us of something that's happening in our schools that we could write our own story about, do our own video, perhaps pitch to the press. So this is good for us too.
He's a big thing, he can keep doing a video though.
Yeah, we'll just occasionally go out. Chicken hat, you know, I got that.
Yeah.
Off guard,
Bring them today.
see, yeah, that kind of stuff, but
That's
with more of our eyes. And then we can help with that. I love that. I love that idea.
Okay, great. Okay, so then first of all, I just also want to review, so thank you, we'll move forward with that. I'm excited about that. Just Robert's rules, so, some of the Robert's rules are, and I think we're actually really good at them, but I just want to review. So everyone should just speak once before anyone else speaking. That's why speaking again. Also seek recognition from me, the chair, for speaking. No interrupting, and then I did go to a class. Well, I think we all did, parliamentary procedure. And one of the suggestions is using a speaking chart. So the reason I think this might be good is just to mix it up with who goes first talking. So it's where I will just like make a check, okay, and I did just do alphabetical order here, but we can mix it up and we don't have to be super strict with it. But okay, Andrew went first on that, so okay, check off, he went first now someone else can go first, right? Like, anyway, and keep track of who went second, and we don't have to be super strict, but I kind of want to just try it as a way to manage the meeting. So.
This helps you the most.
Yeah. Okay, now another big one. Okay, so I know that we all love our board comments. But Jeff has a proposition to change it, and he has a whole idea that they'd already been working on all this before I got in. And this is the thing, if there's 7 of us, if we each talk 5 minutes, that adds 35 minutes.
It does.
I mean, last meeting, for example, I did pay attention. Board comments were 25 minutes. We started at 9 and we got out at 9:25. So this is just an idea, you guys. We can discuss it. We can, if everyone still wants board comments, because we have talked about this before, believe it or not, it was several years ago. And the board still wanted to have the comments. But maybe we could have them every other meeting, or maybe we could only report on committees. Anyway, let's have Jeff present his idea and then we can discuss.
Okay, so keep in mind that this is just a beta site, it's in development. You'll note that because it is an old picture of the former Impanel Board of Education. The reason we use the old one is because today was the day we got the photograph of all of you good folks.
I wanted the Christmas picture.
Photoshopped in that, that's not actually. I can tell.
You actually are, Holly.
Because we never took a board picture until his Christmas suit.
Photoshopped in.
That's a little frightening.
Where's the Snapchat filter?
We did not use the Snapchat filter that gives you all bunny ears. But we
That
should have. You'll see here that this is our proposal for the new website that features the Board of Education. So when you go to leadership on our new website, this is what you will see. You'll see here that we are saying, and we will say repeatedly in our communications, both online and in print, that this is your Canyons Board of Education working for you. Today, actually, at the suggestion of President Schill, we have put together a graphic that we'll put on all social that says this is how the Canyons Board of Education works for you. And we'll do a rundown in graphic form of what you all did in tonight's meeting. This is in addition to the board summary that we do. But you'll see here that it's more visual than what we've had in the past. You'll see over to the left side where it says view board videos. Those of you who were newly elected, you had your video shown during the oath of office ceremony. Others we've asked you to come in and talk on camera about who you are, what you stand for, what you basically your community and your thoughts on public education and how you're an advocate for schools and Canyon School District. So your constituents would see right up front who you are and be able to see a video that in your own words says who you are and what you plan to do as a board member to represent your schools, your community, and Canyons. Then you'll see that we have an interactive map. So if I come over to this side and click on one, this pops up. Mr. Millerberg has his bio here and also his contact information right there. Now, if we click out of it, we click out. Okay, it goes back. Now, if we were to click on Mrs. Schill's, that also pops up. So it has more of her photo and identifies all of the schools that she represents and a little bit about her and the district she represents and also how to contact Amber. But also if you roll over the photograph, it goes to her email contact as well. Then this is what we're proposing. Instead of the board giving a board report, we're proposing to start a blog for every board member on the board page. So if you click on read the blog, her blog would come up. You can put photos on there. You can write what you want to write. Every time you go somewhere, you can write a really quick email. Write a quick email to both me and Kirsten. We'll really quickly edit it and get it up online. You can update as much as you want. You could update every single day if you wanted. If you wanted to write 250 words, which is what your column is right now, you can do so. If you want to write 150, great. But if you want to write 700, go ahead. If you want to do just photographs of you visiting your schools and the activities that you go to, you can go there. Let's keep in mind that about 12 million people come to our website every year. 3.5 million come to the district website. There are about 12 people who are watching the live stream.
And maybe 4.
It's usually 13.
Total number of people who viewed last week's board meeting's live stream was 221. In CSDTU, what we would do is where your board columns typically run, we would do that column, that graphic that says how your board is working for you, and do a graphic representation of all you've discussed and decided, and have a QR code there to these pages. So if they want to go to see what you've been doing, then they can do so, but they get a really good look quickly in graphic form of how you are working for them. And even more people will be able to see what you're doing. And they can also interact with you in that moment. If they read your blog and have a question about where you've been or where you stand on a certain issue, your email address is right there. This is a way that you can engage more thoroughly with your constituents. More people will hear what you're doing and how you're representing your constituents. Even more people across the district will see this, because in CSDDU right now, we mail your column just to your area. So there may be people in Draper who've never seen Mrs. Tingey's column. There's people in Cottonwood Heights who have never read what Ms. Nybauer writes. With this, everybody in the district gets to see what you as board members are doing to work for them. It's going to save us time as staff, because it truly does take us at least one work day, both me and Kirsten, so 16 work hours to do the columns for all of you and the superintendent. This will help you because immediately after you get done, you can just text or email one of us very quickly. And within a matter of moments, we can see it, edit it, and get it up. Every single day, you can update to your folks what you're doing. And every single day, they can see what you're doing for them. It's in addition to any social media that you may be doing. But this speaks with the official banner of Canyon School District. It has the weight of not just your personal Facebook or Twitter, but this is coming straight from the district's website. And we're attracting so many more people than you can attract with your own social media. So this is a way for us to get the message about what you're doing to work for our community to more people, more so in the board report. And you get to decide every single day, hey, what do I need to say to my constituents? Because I'm hearing from them every day. And we can help you craft the messages just like we do now with CSDTU. It's just in a quicker format.
Thank you, Mr. Haney. Mrs. Oaks has a question.
So it's related to the social media piece. So is there a way to be able to link what's being put on the blog with our own?
So what I had initially, we had, when you scrolled over the photograph, you'll see there, it's just the icon for the email. Initially, we had the icons for social plus your email. And I had her take them off because I wanted to get that input from you on if you wanted us to go from the official district site to your personal Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. If you do, we can do it.
I'm more interested in making sure we're not having to reinvent the wheel, both sides, right? So like whatever's being fed into the blog, I'd love for it to be able to transfer over to social media.
Great.
Let me see if we can.
You would
Let me
write
see if we can make it happen. I'm pretty sure we can. But we'll get back to you on that.
Any other questions, board?
Would this completely eliminate board reports at the end of the meeting?
Yes. No
I
more
don't think
board
they're
reports, no more CSDDU, because it will be,
Did you call them?
it'll be, yeah, column. Or, yeah, individual board columns. It'll be just like graphic of, these are what we discussed, this is what the board voted on. It'll just be, I don't know, there's some cities like Cotton Heights City and Sandy started doing just a post, social media posts like that. Mrs. Nybar and then Mr. Millerbrook.
And so just as a suggestion too, and President Schill and I talked about this. When she ends the meeting, she will say, the QR code behind me on the screen leads you to the place on the board website that will tell you what the board members have been doing. You can see their personal blogs there. And then, of course, on all of our mailers, including CSDDU, all of our postcards, everything that we send to parents, it'll have the QR code that goes directly to that page. So your constituents can get that to your board reports in the form of blogs.
So Mrs. Nybar and Mr. Millerbrook.
So I love the use of technology. Obviously, there is a lot more viewers on this, so it makes a ton of sense. My one thought though is with that CSDTU, I'm surprised at how many people in the community actually read my column. And especially those that don't have kids in the system and are older. And I do feel that those that are paying their property taxes and, you know, and their pride in our schools, how do we reach out to them? Because I am actually really surprised how many people stop me that have read that don't have any kids in the school and they say, I love your column and that's how I know what's good. So how do we reach out to those people is my first question. Because
So
they're not gonna go online necessarily.
So CSDDU right now is sent only to the people that have children in Canyons District Schools. And here's why, because those are the only address we have in our database. So if you don't have a child in Canyons District Schools, you have to call and ask us to put you on that list. Now, you may well be a grandparent, an aunt, or even a friend or a neighbor and have been able to see it because they share that information,
Okay.
but it only goes to the parents.
Once
If
they,
we were to expand that, we have to pay for those addresses.
I see.
And it can get costly for every mailing.
So those,
I actually would submit to you, Holly, that those who don't have kids in the district, this is the better way to communicate with them or the easier way for them to access your message because we don't have a database with their names and addresses.
okay, so those people are either reading it from their kids' homes or they've requested to have it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kirsten has a,
I just wanted to add mention of the fact that we've also launched an account on Nextdoor, the Canyons District. So that's a really good way to reach, that skews to kind of a little bit of an older audience.
Yeah.
And so I think it's another good way to reach folks that aren't necessarily a captive audience of our messaging. And we can certainly share the blogs on that platform as well.
It's a great idea.
I think that's a really good idea because I've seen, sorry to comment without asking you.
well, I was actually
That's fine.
next.
Okay.
Mr. Millerbrook and then,
I have one other question too, but do you want to wait? That was my first. I have a second, but do you want to go around and then I?
sure. Go ahead.
This may be kind of tacky, but that's never stopped me before. I really have enjoyed, maybe not the long-winded stuff, but I really enjoy hearing in board meeting what other board members are doing and where they've been and what they've done. And it encourages me to go do more. And I'm afraid that if we completely eliminate board comments, quite honestly, Andrew, I probably will never click on yours and read what you've been doing. Nothing personal, because I can say that to the, 5 other people as well. And maybe I'm steeped in tradition. And it's always been that way. I would so be in favor of 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I would miss having that report and hearing what other people are doing.
Thank you. Mrs. Pedersen.
Oh, I was just gonna build upon Kirsten, that there is an older group up there and they ask questions all the time about the district. And I've been pleased to see that neighbors have literally stepped in and said, oh, you can substitute here, or you can get a job over here, or this is a need in a school. They're collecting stuffed animals. So I'm glad, I just wanted to say, I'm glad to see that the district's on that site. I did it when I was campaigning, but I obviously continue to follow it. It's interesting. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Edel and then Ms. Nyberg.
So anyone who's been to my Facebook will know that I like this type of messaging and what we're doing. But I guess similar to Mont's point, I as an outsider, having observed the comments, I always thought that that was nice for those who were there, right? Whereas I feel like this is more external facing. And I feel like the things that are said in board meeting are really for the board. And we only have so much of an opportunity to be together and to communicate together. And I say this with respect to with the time of everyone, and I'm not saying, I really can't say favor or not with any of these because it's tough and.
Ms. Nyberg.
Yeah, my second question was along with the board comments as well. I think having going through the meetings and how we're always trying to be sensitive that we're staying on topic with the agenda. I feel like the closing comments allows me as a board member to hear my fellow board members' other thoughts or aspirations as well as what they're doing. And I don't know, but maybe there'd be a tendency if we get rid of that you kind of want to almost include that with some of your comments, but it might be off topic of the agenda item. Because it is the one opportunity for us as a board to hear not only what our board members are doing, but sometimes it's an aspiration about, hey, we just finished the strategic plan and this is, and that's really the only chance we have to speak off topic as a group ever. And so I do think there's some learning that happens with that.
Thank you, Mr. Milligan.
And kind of feeding off that, I would also say there are times that either I failed to get something put on the agenda.
Yeah.
USBA takeaways.
Yeah.
Or other stuff similar to that, and it is a nice time to be able to say, oh, in addition to what we discussed tonight, I have this for the board.
Okay, Mrs. Tina.
So I'm kind of leaning towards that as well. It is one of my favorite parts of the meeting here, each other, but I think maybe if we can all just keep in mind the purpose of that time and keep it very succinct and mindful of, the time of meeting ends as well as, just other time constraints. I don't know. I mean, I think this blog idea is really good, but
We still want
that's going to take a little extra effort, at least for me to kind of
Well,
think about doing it. And I'm not real big on social media, so as far as like linking it to something, that would be it for me probably. So.
Okay, so it sounds like we want to keep board comments, everyone, and you want to do it every meeting.
What about a time limit on them?
I like a time limit.
Sure.
What do you think? What time limit? 3 minutes?
Tops. Same as he's counting fingers.
Same as
Same as people.
So 3 minutes?
We need to get used to it.
3 minutes for individuals? Okay, I mean.
He's got the timer.
We're not gonna time and buzz, but why don't we,
Get your timer out.
unless you want to, Cindy, to get that timer.
Actually, I think it would be funny.
It would be kind of. Well, it helps you to learn to pace. I used to at conferences, I would set a timer because you only have 15 minutes. And if they're sitting there and the person you're talking to hears it and you hear it, then it's not rude. It's just, we're done.
Well, I could bring my gavel and just hit it.
Turn the mic off.
That's true. I could turn the mic off. So we'll keep them, but let's try to keep them short. For the most part, I think most of us do. Once in a while, there's a long story. So practice your comments and time them before. Okay, what about the CSD to you question? I mean, Holly had some reservations. Is everyone else okay with switching the format?
I'm okay with switching.
So the column would look like what that they get in the mail now?
Do you have a mock-up of that?
Would it have their board members picture with the QR code or just be all the board members? Like, would people be able to look at that and know who their board member is or?
Well, there'll be a picture of the.
Okay.
QR code.
So they wouldn't really know who their board member was unless they went to the.
It would be listed, so Board of Education, and then all of your names, contact information. And then it'll have your photos on there, and the QR code to this site.
Mr. Milberg?
I think that if you've got your own article in CFDDU and people do it, they will browse through that. I think you are going to lose about 98% of the people that see your picture with a QR code and they just move right on by it. They will never click the QR code. And so personally, I kind of like to have the CFDDU with a short call. You're gonna hate me by the time the night's over, Jeff.
Okay, I have a question. What if board members are okay with that? So like Holly, Vermont want to have their own column, but the rest of us are fine with the other? Or is that too complicated?
And that's more work.
It sounds to me like the intent was to have one print of
Yes, it
CSDT
was.
that goes out to everyone.
Right now, we do 7.
Labor.
Right now, we do 7 totally different CSD. And I will tell you that columns. It may seem like we can just sit down and dash those off.
Yeah.
Not. It takes a lot of effort. And there are more times than not, Kirsten and I take that home at night and we are writing until 10, 11 o'clock at night because we can't get to it here during the day. If we can go to this new format, then we can maintain an every 4-week schedule.
So what about board? Could we just try it for a few months?
Yeah.
Could we try it?
Could you have
for
a,
few months?
could you have a set so it never changes, but where like where it's Mott's district on that on that column has a picture of him, so they know that he's their board member instead of the whole board, and that's just always set in the print. So you're not actually writing or changing anything, but that might be nice so people know who their board member is without having to go online and look at the map and say, oh, here's my board member, click the QR code, I can.
Can we do that? Yes. It would just require us to swap out page 3 for every edition.
That's a lot of work.
Or print the map.
So I will say this though. Swapping out page 3, a new plate for page 3 is so much easier than if we continue writing the columns for the board members. And it's not that we don't think it's valuable because the feedback we get from that is really, really positive. It's just we can do it here. There's nothing's precluding us from writing the column for you and putting it on your blog and then pushing out the QR code to all of your constituents at least once a month, so they can not only just read your monthly message, but also updates even on a daily basis of what you do.
It's partly training the community as well. I mean, it's training us, but it's also training them. They've just not had that option before.
I think it's a good idea to try, because there's people that reside in the area that I represent, but then some of those folks don't necessarily go to the schools that I'm, participating in going out to, and they might attend a school that's in someone else's area and they might want to see, what that board member's doing, so.
Okay, I think we
Okay
should
to
try it. Why don't we try it for a few months, maybe through the end of the year? How about that? Yeah.
End of the school year.
School year, yes, school year. Through May.
Are we trying it where they still have to figure out who their board member is online?
Page 3.
Page 3, great.
Page 3.
Less legwork for
But
others.
still have the whole board,
Yes.
then we'll have the individual board members.
That's great. I like that. I'm surprised how many people read CSDTU. I really do get comments all the time
I
about
do
it.
too.
It's a very well-read publication.
It really is.
It surprised me the penetration rate. Look forward to get it. And it's written in a format where you can get all of the information really, really quickly.
Yes.
And it's just a matter of moments, be able to scan through at least 20 articles about Canyons District.
Okay, well, great. We're already way behind on time.
Okay.
My last, but thank you so much. And thank you, board, for the discussion and coming
Comment about you.
together, and we'll see. We'll revisit it in the summer. Just remind me,
I'll be surprised.
or send me a note if you hate it. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is I would really like to end the meeting by 10 o'clock. Meetings by 10 o'clock. Between 9 and 10, the earlier the better. 10, I want a hard stop. That is my last comment on the board meeting protocols. Okay, yes.
Are you going to say that in the beginning, that as a board, we recognize we want to honor people's time and that we will be having a hard stop no later than 10? So that our constituents, know.
Yeah,
So when you call it, you call it.
really good idea.
Agenda
Thank you.
items have not been addressed. Agenda.
Yes. Yes.
Even
what I'm
if
gonna
I'm
do.
sensitive.
Yes.
Put the time sensitive one first.
Yes.
Yeah, so that is my plan.
It's up to you guys when you develop the
Yeah.
agenda to
We just have
keep
to.
that in mind.
Mind, yeah. Okay, we're way behind. Let's go on to the item 2023 legislative update. Charlie Evans, Director of External Relations, and Susan Edwards, Public Engagement Coordinator.
Susan's handing out priorities that were passed this morning by the public education program subcommittee. Today, I thought we'd just start by talking about vouchers. We hadn't had a chance to talk about them since it passed the legislature. I know everybody knows what happened. I just wanted to say, public meeting, I've never seen anything like it. I think it's questionable, the process, ethically questionable, the process they use. I've seen them pass bills in one day, but it's usually on the last day. I've never seen them do anything like this the first week of the legislative session. Nothing even close. I thought for a second towards the end, the governor started also complaining about the process. And so I thought maybe there may be a little bit of a hook there. Then he got the bill on Friday night and signed it on Saturday morning. So I could see how worried he was about the process that they used. Everybody in this room will likely recognize the name of Lisa Bruns. She did us all a huge favor during this debate in capturing on a recorded message, one of the lead lobbyists on behalf of vouchers, who was explaining at a conference that they were at in no uncertain terms that the goal of what they were doing was to destroy public education. And immediately everybody distanced herself from Allison. I've known Allison for a long time, and her dad, Doug Holmes, who used to lead this fight a decade ago, and Doug has gone on to other things, but Allison is still there. And so everybody distanced themselves from it. Susan can back me up that those kinds of things are things we have heard said under the breath by a lot more people up at the legislature than Allison Sorensen. And she was just the one unfortunate enough to get her comments caught on recording. And I want to say in this meeting, thank you to Lisa for doing that, not only for capturing those comments, but for publishing them on Twitter. I thought for a second that might slow them down, but not even that slowed them down. And so You know, it became clear once the bill came over to the Senate that the bill needed amendments to it, and they passed the bill that they knew needed amendments with, and they're now running separate bills to fix these problems, the things that should have been done by amendment. They did not want to send it back over to the House. They were afraid that they got 54 votes. They only needed 50 to make it referendum proof. And I guess they were not comfortable in those 4 or 5 people that put them over the 50 vote threshold. And I thought, you know, they needed 20 in the Senate and they got 20. I thought that we had a chance there at the end to keep it to 19, but there was 3 potential candidates, lost on all 3 of them. They all voted yes. And I just would like to say one other thing about this in a public meeting for us all to know and understand. It's easy for us to focus on the people like who I was just referring to, the people up there that are opposed to public education and want to do whatever it is they want to do to public education. The sad fact about this is they could not have done this without the help of people that we all look to and think of as our friends and protectors of public education. If you look down that list of people who voted for this bill, it's full of people like that. And so it's not just the traditional enemies of public education who did this to us. It's people that we've counted on and believed in for a very long time, for our friends. I want to personally single out. I went back and forth whether or not to single out Representative Eagleson, because he certainly wasn't the only one of our people that represent Canyon School District that voted no. All of the Democrats voted no. We all owe them a very sincere vote of thanks. It was not an easy vote even for them, but I can assure you that nobody stood up to the kind of pressure that Representative Eagleson did. And we knew this beforehand, but just to state the obvious, he has a backbone of steel. He was one of 2 Republicans who voted no. The other, incidentally enough, was a freshman Republican, Jay Cobb, from just right across. Oh, excuse me. I always forget Judy, and I thank you for doing that. And we all owe them a sincere vote of thanks. That was not easy to do that. I have never in my time in the legislature seen the amount of pressure put on people that were put on these legislators, and the ones and that's Republicans and Democrats, and the ones that stood up to it are the people that you can count on. And I hope whenever we see those people that we offer them a sincere thank you, because they deserved it, and they each paid a political price for doing what they've done, and they probably aren't done paying that political price too. So I personally would like to thank them. I know it wasn't easy, and where we go from here, you know, the bill is signed. It is referendum proof. I have not, you know, everybody up there is trying to get through the session. There are, you know, potentially initiatives rather than referendums and things like that. And, you know, I think it was President Obama who coined the phrase elections have consequences. Alan Dayton and I went through the list of people, because as you'll recall, we beat this by 50 votes last year. If you look at the people who left the legislature who voted yes last year, you know, and some of them got defeated for re-election, some of them just didn't run, but there were 11 people in our legislature last year that 11 Republicans, excuse me, that voted opposed vouchers last year. Every one of their replacements voted yes this year. So elections do have consequences. And when you look down on that ballot and you see who your state legislative candidate is, I hope we'll all take the time in the future to learn who those people are and what they're likely to do with issues like public education that we care about. Because as President Obama taught us, and as we learned a very hard lesson earlier this week, elections do have consequences, and this is the result. in my opinion, of our enemies doing a much better job of identifying what the problem was they needed to fix, going out and recruiting candidates and getting those candidates elected into office. And you look at people like Steve Waldrop and what happened to him in his election, Kelly Miles, and what happened to him in his election. You know, there's no way that you can't say that this wasn't a very well thought out, very well coordinated effort that was supremely successful. And we're going to have a hell of a time doing this in the future, because as I said, the camel's nose is under the tent. And, you know, the first thing the people who voted for this are going to tell you, well, it's only 4,000 scholarships, only this and that and the other. But the camel's nose is under the tent. They drew it that way, they on purpose, so they could say that. And the camel will be in the tent before we all know it. And before I move on, is there any questions Susan or I can answer on that? I hope I didn't leave any doubt.
Just as a clarification, so one of the groups that funded in large measure the Utah Fits All scholarship or bill or voucher, whatever we're gonna call it, is a political action committee, correct?
Yes, yes.
I think that's really important to recognize.
You know, clear in retrospect, I don't know how I missed it going in, but the clear in retrospect, all these people were recruited, all these new candidates were recruited for one purpose. And, you know, I am a Republican, I am a conservative, and so I usually don't mind working with Republicans or conservatives. This legislature, I will put it up against any legislature in this country for being a conservative legislature. This is the most, in my opinion, the most conservative legislature in the country. And I don't think there's a close second from what I can tell. I mean, it's a whole different game up there than we faced certainly in the last 6 years. Do you disagree? Any other questions about vouchers?
Charlie, if you were to put a name on it, as far as who spearheaded it, what name would you put on it?
And you ask me that sometime when we're not in a public meeting.
Okay,
Some of us,
I don't know if I could put it on one person anyway, but I could list a few.
we all know who sponsored the bill. But I don't know that that was a spearhead.
No, I mean, that bill sponsor, although she's a very good legislator, very capable bill sponsor. I mean, this was done by Republican leadership, the speaker and the president of the House. You cannot do what was done and the way it was done without leadership doing it. There's no way. There's no way. And I don't think anyone would deny that that's how it got done. I mean, occasionally on the last day of the legislature, there's a rule in our legislature that a bill has to be on the third reading calendar for 24 hours before it's voted on. Occasionally on the last day, you see them waive that rule for obvious reasons. But this bill was not on the House calendar for 24 hours or anything like 24 hours. It is a rule, for instance, that a bill has to be in possession of a committee before it could be on a committee's agenda. And this bill was put on a Senate committee agenda while it was still in control of the House and was not yet to the Senate secretary, something I've never seen happen. Occasionally at the end of a legislative session, they will put a bill that's in the Senate Rules Committee on a standing committee's agenda towards the end of a legislative session. But I've never seen them do anything like this before. Never. And the thing that's frustrating about it is they didn't have to do it. They clearly had the votes. They clearly could have used their normal process and regular order. They were making a point. I think they made it.
Mrs. Oaks has another question.
Sorry. Do we know of who is working on amendments to HB 215 and if we have any leverage at all at trying to make it slightly more palatable?
Well, what is the number of the bill?
I know that Representative Perucci is working on something to have. in
There's
the
gonna be,
future,
there's
But
gonna be two. One will start in the House and go to the Senate. One will go to the Senate.
Then there's some peripheral.
But I mean, if we, stuff that's. If if anything gets in those bills they don't like, they will not pass. So those bills aren't gonna save us. The bill that saves us is gonna be run, not this year, not next year either. Because we're gonna have to change a lot of hearts and minds and a lot of legislators, frankly.
problem is there's no way for the data to come back and actually show how damning this problem is. I mean, because this student can literally go an entire year without reading science or math. And as long as they have a portfolio turned in,
Yeah, one of the more frustrating things about this is to hear these legislators complain, well, you need to go to private school because all these regulations and stuff that you have to deal with them. Well, who authored all those regulations? You guys, the legislature. We have most of this stuff originates right here in this body, and now you're complaining about it as though it's something that that kids need to get away from. Your parents are having a hard time with it. And a lot of that I would agree with and can be repealed as easy as it was passed if they actually cared about it and meant what they were saying.
well, it's the opposite of fiscal accountability.
Any other question on that? Should we move on to the budget? I think as Susan said, this is the sheet they passed out this morning. Don't need to spend a lot of time on this. There's about 250 some odd $1 million in new education funding. Is that the way you add it up? I've noticed one thing that they began doing. They want to get credit for every bit of new money that they spend on education and call it the WPU. And that, they're doing that. They did that in spades today for anybody who was listening to that committee. They tried to act like they were recommending to the executive appropriations a 14% WPU. In reality, if you look at the 130 some odd $1 million from the Amendment G money and that very top line item there, 1A, 104 million, it comes out to about a 6% WPU. And, I told them, I'll tell you, and I'll tell anybody else that listens to it, if you want credit for putting money in the WPU, then you got to put money in the WPU. And I'm not going to give you any credit for money you don't put in the WPU for WPU. Now, a lot of this stuff on here, very good stuff. I have no problems with it, but it's not the WPU. And the money that comes in the WPU, I don't need to tell you guys, but for anybody who's listening, that's what gives the board the most flexibility. And that's why we want as much money as we can in the WPU. These other things are worthy, and some of them do need to be in separate line items for obvious reasons. But it's not a 14% WPU, it's a 6% WPU. And just in fairness, the number that comes out of the committee is almost always lower than what's eventually approved by the Executive Appropriations Committee and then eventually passed in the budget. So I would suspect, although I'm not predicting that here because I don't know, I would suspect that that number will go up before the budget is passed eventually late or early in March. Is there any questions? Susan's got a number of bills we want to discuss very briefly. Is there any questions about this that we can answer?
This is over.
The full day kindergarten with the asterisk includes a companion motion. Could you explain that?
I can't remember what the motion was.
It's back in one of, when I see that, it's back in one of the motions, but it just takes it from a different funding source. Let's see where it is, it takes it from a different funding source. Nancy, do you remember?
Yeah, so if you read where the asterisk is,
Yeah.
it's so the 36 million is from new money ongoing funds. And 19 million is also new money ongoing funds that was previously set aside for statewide student enrollment growth that they didn't need that money.
They didn't
So instead of putting it back in the pot, they designated it for additional resource.
Thank you. I read it, but it was abbreviated enough that I wasn't quite sure. Thanks.
And there was there'll be some intent language that allow districts that have problems, with room to do it, give them some flexibility. Do that, but, that's a big deal. It's something we've been working for as a board for a very long time. And, was very happy to have that. But there again, that money, you add that into WPU, it gives people, our employees, the false sense that there's more money there for raises than actually going to be, because as you know, all day K has its own
Set of cost.
Yes, exactly. So we're very happy. We're very appreciative of the legislature for doing that. But I think we need to be careful that I think it's frustrating for them to say that it's a 14% WP, knowing the pressure that puts on you guys, because there's no way that there's going to be 14% increase in the amount of money that you can pay teachers or ESPs. And as much as we'd like to do that, it's not there.
Yep.
And they know in saying that, you heard those of you that were at our legislative luncheon that the frustration they have. Well, I've voted for $6 billion in increases in public education. Well, thank you very much. We do appreciate that. We're still 50 out of 50 states. So don't pat yourself on the back too hard.
Right. They had an interesting presentation today of a man from Kansas that they brought in today that presents funding based off of our NAEP scores, and we're the top in the nation on that for what it's worth. But they were very proud of themselves for being the top in the lowest funded state to achieve the highest scores. Anyway, just smoke and mirrors. There is
Post-COVID.
there is one thing that I don't think Charlie or I have seen, and a couple of legislators have called this afternoon and said they've never seen this before. The last statement in their language is WPU value funding for classified staff. So the classified union has been up there advocating for themselves, have gotten Representative Lisenby to run a bill appropriating some funding to compensate them like they're compensating teachers. And the last paragraph says intent language directing local education agencies to prioritize classified staff compensation increases with additional funding received through the WPU value increase. So essentially it said, we're not going to fund classified staff. We do expect you out of the WPU that we give you to fund this. And we've had, like I said, a couple of legislators call this afternoon and said they've never seen intent language telling us what to do with the WPU before.
Yeah, I think it's too bad the way they pitted those two employee groups against each other at the legislature. And I think that they're hearing from the ESPs for good reason. They could have done the same thing for the ESPs that they did for the teachers. They got plenty of money. They could have done that, and this voucher people, they don't want it to for whatever reason. So if there's no more questions about that, I've asked Susan to talk, get the highlights of a couple other bills, and then we're available for any other questions that you might have.
So we just are kind of tracking bills, obviously right now numbered, we've got 212 numbered and undumbered. We've got about 217 bills. We have some more still coming. They have to take a leave of the body to do that at this point, but we do know and have protected copies of a few more that are headed out our way. Just kind of interesting looking at it. Some of these are not very high numbers, but looking at it, there's currently 2 grandma bills, 4 teacher professional practice bills, and we know of 1 more coming in that, maybe 2 more coming in that area. Open and public meetings, 3 sensitive materials bills, currently 3. 1 of them is not released yet. Juvenile justice, 2. School safety, 2. There was a large increase in school safety funding that was flexible today. Pay for employees and retirement and or union impacts, teachers union impacts. There's 11 bills currently. Curriculum bills, there's 11 bills currently. Graduation attire, 4. And then, of course, we're still all waiting for the looming constitutional earmark.
Yeah, and we've been put on notice by a number of different people that are in a position to know there are some really bad bills coming. So.
Any other questions?
Other than that, things have been going great.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your presentation, and thanks for your work up there at the Capitol. It was really.
I want to thank you guys.
Yeah, I should have started that way. Thank you guys so much for coming up yesterday. We really appreciate it. It means a lot to us. It's nice to have you guys up there. We love to have you guys engage with our legislators. They enjoy it too, and it's helps them see that that you guys are actually engaged. Whenever Susan and I tell them that the board cares about this, that, or the other thing, they see that we actually mean it when we say that. So we appreciate it. We always encourage you guys to engage any way that you feel comfortable doing with the legislature, and really appreciate the time that and effort you guys took in doing that yesterday and throughout the year. We appreciate it.
And thanks to Nancy, she's an invaluable part of our team at this point. So she helps, I don't know if you guys know this, but on the tracker helps write the descriptions, and she interprets bills as well as either one of us, better probably.
Better than me.
Better, and helps us keep our head going and straight. So we appreciate her time and efforts on our behalf, because it's invaluable right now.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your presentation. Okay, we're gonna go on to item C. So this is progressive indicators of the 5 board tenants: student achievement, community engagement, customer service, innovation, and fiscal ability. And we have Dr. Hal Sanderson, Director of Research and Development. And he has told me he has his time down to 11.
You ready?
Okay, but listen, board, can we wait till he's done? Because there's no way he can do it in 11 minutes if we're asking.
My bet wants to have you say that, so.
So
Okay.
let's hold questions to the end and we will let him go. Okay, thank you.
I'm pleased to be here and go over some indicators of success and where we're still working, and if there stops. There are the 5 board tenets that are part of the larger strategic plan. The tenets have been from the previous board goals and have carried forward in the new board vision mission statements that were adopted in April to you all. So here are the 5 tenets that we're going to discuss: student achievement, community engagement, customer service, innovation, and then wrap up with the fiscal accountability. So the student achievement are largely focusing on the end of year tests that are used as part of accountability. So they're ones that you should be familiar with at this point. And we can get our head around this one slide. We're just going to kind of roll through it. So the bright blue is the Kenyon's data trend. This is for 3rd grade. It's covered by that slide. So this is a 3rd grade ELA. That's going to drive me crazy. Is there any way? She left. All right. I hope I have it memorized well. So that's 3rd grade ELA. And you can see that we stopped when we went too quickly to remote learning in March of 2020. So end of year test was canceled. There's an asterisk by 2021. And again, it's going to be across everything. We know that we came back. We know that we were doing schooling. We know that we had all sorts of ups and downs. And the goal was to finish the year in person, and we did. But we did not have full participation. It was pretty good, but not at our 95, 96% that we're used to. And that is also the same statewide. So be a little cautious with 2021, but our spring 2022 was kind of, I think, back in the integrity and the participation that we're used to. But you can see that we are above the state. This is 3rd grade. Another qualifier, these kiddos were in March of their 1st grade year when they got scooted to remote learning. So keep that in mind in these first few slides, because not all grades are the same when we did a quick move to remote learning. And all of you, through kids or others, imagine remote learning for 1st graders. It's not quite the richness of the full day. We did the best we could. Sorry. It'll take 2 of them. I didn't do anything. You're affecting my time.
I know. You get like 10 more minutes.
Your timer.
Really sabotaged.
You'll get some
Which
stopping.
one is it? Which one is it? You're the ones. Which one? Here, stop the share.
Sure.
You'll find.
Only one slide. I look over yours, Sam. It's super. I gotta keep going.
In the meeting.
You guys all have? No. All right.
You need to pause that time.
Yeah, I've messed you all up.
So 3rd grade mathematics, it'll come up, but you can see that we have some decline there. The state had a little bit of a gain, but I want to talk about all of our achievement because again, we're dealing with first graders at that grade level. And one thing you'll notice is the decline was in both content areas. So it's not like what was the ELA that we were doing or things like that. It was a consistent pattern.
It still won't go.
This is good. I'll let somebody else control it.
To go back to the.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Have this. I had it.
No, it's.
Sorry, guys.
Next slide, please.
You. Enter full screen.
When it works, but when it doesn't.
Now it should work.
No, you click it. I'm not.
Come on. Try it again.
You do it.
Try it again.
I want to phone a friend.
I don't know why it's.
Well, bad if I not go to full screen and I just click the slide
Yeah.
when I'm editing on my desk.
It's fine.
They're just teaching you.
Screen share is the problem. I don't know why it's not working.
Stop.
Too arrogant coming in with your.
You can go.
Arrogant. All right, so third grade ELA or mathematics, and again, you can see both were downward. We go to fifth grade, so they were third graders when we moved to remote quickly. And you can see that there's a nice rebound that we have along with the state. But again, these are well above the state. So if we're like +3 or 4 over the state, we're living like +10 or more. I mean, we have a lot of neighboring districts that would like these numbers and achievement results. Mathematics, a similar pattern. You can see that we're moving back up, but not quite to where we were pre-COVID and that momentum. And then bring in science, same pattern, very far above the state, but not where we were pre-COVID. Let's jump over to grade 8. Grade 8 is like the shining star. It's just wildly cool. This is the only content area where we have gone above our pre-COVID numbers that I can recall. So it's just incredible. Mathematics, similar gains, but not quite to where we were before our COVID world. And then science, a similar pattern. I never knew that we could do that 1-year jump with 2,500 students was incredible. I knew that it would have to come down, but that's +14 over the state. I mean, that's not a little bit above the state. It's so far ahead. And that you can see that there's a curriculum change, so the test changed, but you can still see the pattern is consistent in terms of where we are compared to the state. High school, jumping over to ACT, there were a lot of interruptions, so let me go through it. So for 2019, 2020, we did the administration, but when we were going to do makeup testing, it got canceled because of COVID. So we tested around 89–90% of our students. The state was probably around 75 to 80% of their students when they got moved because districts can pick different windows. So that one had some compromised nature to it. 2021, we still had the same thing. We were testing around 90% of our students statewide. They were in that similar boat. But now when we come back to the last administration for March 2022, it's interesting to see how close that matches the 18-19 school year in terms of at least that base. But that's the story with ACT. There was a lot with participation rates as we were dealing with COVID and getting students back to in-person learning. The ACT benchmarks, I'm really frustrated. I'm sorry I don't have the state comparison. I've looked everywhere, I've talked to people. But you can see our COVID dip, and then you can see our 2022 where we've moved up. And then if you see the lower left slide in our ACT reading, we had a nice bump up where we went above pre-COVID numbers. So high school achievement data. You were here, many of you on the board with having to look at grading policies dealing with COVID and what to do spring 2020. We know all of the struggles that everyone has had, obviously students first and foremost, as we're dealing with this, to kind of have a slide down, but still have that high of a graduation rate. There are hundreds of people and thousands of hours behind pulling that off. I'm glad to present it, but it's all the people in the schools that make that happen. And the families working with their kids, but it's quite nice to be able to kind of have it hold to where it was. But I'm going to give you a preview because we're going to now talk about some data bringing in on chronic absenteeism. And so when I was talking with Dr. Dowdle, when we were dealing with out of COVID, he goes, I'm worried a little bit further down the line. And that is holding pretty well because we're going to talk about our students not attending schools. Oh, I'm sorry. My preview is wrong. This is our different student groups on our graduation rate. And I am beyond thrilled. My compliment for the hundreds of people and thousands of hours, but we have some gains with our multilingual students that are just fabulous. There's a copy of the full report that I have as an addendum on the website and part of the minutes for the board, but you can see here, I wanted to share this wonderful news when we really talk about gains for different groups. When we have that for economically disadvantaged students, for our students with disabilities, these are just really, really positive increases in trends. We hope that it continues with our efforts. Okay, chronic absenteeism, trying to get back to, we want these bar charts to be low. We have a category of where the number of days that they're absent instructionally, the flag goes up the more days that they have. This is our early warning system focused on that area of attendance and absenteeism. So here are the charts. And the top one is for the district as a whole. And what I can show you is that we have on the left, you have 18-19. So that's our pre-COVID world. And then you have the 2021-22 year that we just finished. We didn't even get into the messy middle, but a pretty clean year. And what you can see across the board, across levels, we have more students that are chronically absent. And then just off the press, in terms of the first look at this current school year, and it's gone down some, but not dramatically to the pre-COVID levels. The discussions and the energies to address this is ongoing. This is nothing new. Schools see this. There's all sorts of efforts that are going on. And this is a national issue as well. It's not just a Canyons issue as we look at about engaging kids and getting them back and talking about the value or dealing with the trauma from COVID. It all comes together when we see some things like this with our chronic absentee rates. So I promise you it's a discussion across the board for people addressing it. Let's go to a few other of the tenets. The next tenet is community engagement. And again, broken record, there's a COVID impact. So we know March 2020, moving to remote, we had that first dip of both the number of volunteers as well as the total hours. And then our 21, the policies you were approved every policy as to people not being in the building. And you can see where our recovery is. You can see that it is coming back, but this really mirrors the achievement results, that dip down and then kind of starting to come back. School community councils. This is the percent of principals that are trained. The percent of chairs trained, so we're right around 72%. Our most recent, with this year, Susan was able to provide this year. The SCC members trained. A lot better than before COVID. Then we're going to jump over to customer service, and these are some web metrics. Apparently something happened over the last 3 years that may have really driven people to our website. And so a lot of people went to our website. There was these things called COVID numbers that people wanted to look at. And apparently it was part of this and all of the policies about what we're doing with schools that you all were deciding about drove an incredible increase on our traffic going to the website, as Jeff Haney mentioned earlier. And then the average minute went up. So kudos to well-written stories. We want to talk about our community stack. This is from our parent survey. This is administered in November. It's critical. That's why we have our 2020 school year. And you can see that's been pretty consistent with saying that parents are pleased with how much their student is learning at school, their child. This is looking at your child's emotional well-being and that they're pleased with how the school. You can see where that is, but it is a tick down. But I could argue, I'm kind of surprised it's not lower than that with everything that's going on. Jumping to our seniors and their senior exit survey to see how they felt about things. That's administered in April and May, so COVID knocked out that one data year. But you can see that's been pretty consistent. And our participation rate for seniors taking that has been pretty good once we realized we would be a little more creative about threatening graduation status to consider that.
The cabin gown.
What is the response rate?
It's not keeping them.
I need to look it up, but the last that I looked, I think we're around 60 to 70%. I think those are really good numbers. And then you guys have talked about this when that concern, at least as we looked at the most recent employee satisfaction survey. I don't want to go down that road again, but obviously there's a lot going on that's not just work related, but that was there to be discussed. Innovation. This has typically been a focus on just what you all have voted and supported in terms of programs. We've expanded the Step to the U with going to Jordan High. And then I'll highlight at the bottom the Thrive time and that development as a district-wide initiative with your leadership, and that's out of the gate now. Last but not least, the exciting stuff that Leon enjoys, who's the expert obviously, is our fiscal indicators. And we look at both budgets as well as fiscal how we're doing. Here we have on our audits, we're in full compliance. That streak goes since the day we started. When we look at bond ratings, we have the Moody's and the Fitch, and we have also always maintained AAA on that. Those latest numbers, but. And then the last chart we'll be looking at the fiscal reporting. The bottom two have been submitted. And the upper ones looking at the budget in terms of highly emeritus and distinguished in terms of our budget. We've always had the highest rating and met all of those awards. So that's a streak that we don't want to ever break. So I've gone through a lot. I know my 11 minutes got compromised.
No, that's okay.
So questions from you?
Okay, so board, we have about 10 minutes. I'd like to end at 5 too. So we have a minute or 5 minutes before board meeting. So just keep that in mind. So what questions do we have? Mr. Milliberg and then Mrs. Nyberg.
Hal, you mentioned volunteers.
Yes, sir.
And we saw a big dip in COVID, which totally explainable. And it's come back, but not back to where it was. Are we doing anything as a district to have any outreach to people in the neighborhoods and the community that would like to volunteer in our school?
I'm gonna phone a friend on that one because I'm the research and assessment guy, but I don't know, Susan, in terms of re-engaging with our volunteers to increase those
I'm
numbers,
sorry,
now
Mike,
that we're out of COVID.
we're gonna deal with these.
I'm just wondering what we're doing as far as outreach to the community to bring volunteers back into the school.
So we still obviously have our PTA volunteer. With Wendy's group, there's partnerships with United Way with some businesses to bring volunteers in. We do have the ability to mail out certain events that schools could use help with to the entire volunteer database. And we do that a few times a year, we'll probably increase that a little bit. But we do have several outreach opportunities to do with both businesses and to the community at large.
Yeah, and what I'm looking at mainly would be volunteers coming in and working in the classroom with the teachers to.
Which is phenomenal. The one thing we do, we have businesses especially that want a media opportunity, but they don't necessarily want to be there every Wednesday at 2 o'clock to help the teacher. And we get companies calling that, but as far as like a consistent individual that wants to be there all the time or be there on a regular schedule, which is what the teachers really request and the principals request. We don't necessarily get a lot of that request. So we have a lot of people that say, hey, our company wants to come do this one-shot deal for, Monday at 2 and we're gonna have media there. And it's like, fantastic. That's not really helpful. That's really more of a disruption to the school day.
Mrs. Nybar.
I was just gonna add a thought to that
Okay,
question.
go ahead.
So my experience, because I like to volunteer in the classroom, and the 21-22 school year, the teachers that I regularly work with did not invite parent volunteers in that year because that school year was still pretty up and down as far as COVID stuff. But this year, I think most everyone that's used to using volunteers. So I would hope that the 22-23 school year will show a noticeable increase. Yeah.
Okay, then Mrs. Nybar, and then I was just informed that Susan has to leave, so we've got to squeeze in item D. And then item E will move to business meeting, but, okay, go ahead.
Super fast. So I've been getting things in my kids folder from the elementary school about how there's all these PTA positions that they're having a hard time filling.
Very hard time getting volunteers.
PTA subscriptions is also down, right? Membership. So that's trending the same as our classroom volunteers. So we really need to kind of crack open and see what's going on with that because they've had a big dip. And I know it's been different how we've had discussions before, how they register to become a member and things. And that's, they've talked about that, but, I think we're seeing that right now at this period in time, there are less parents wanting to volunteer either as a classroom volunteer or in PTA.
And we have
Right.
seen that not just here in Canyons, but we're seeing that in all community groups.
Yes.
There's just less interest in the current younger generation up to maybe
Yes.
30, 35 that want to do that type of volunteering. And getting our parents in the schools and getting them, PTA coincidentally, they have a region director and associate director. They will lose their associate director next year because their membership
Because of it.
dropped.
And we're not, and I know I have friends on school boards in different states, and I think that's across the country. Mhm. Okay, quick question. Would it be possible in the future when we have these presentations, thanks Hal, it's fantastic, this senior exit survey, when you were talking about, I know now to get their cap and gown, they have to fill it out, but that's kind of changed over the years. So it'd be nice to also have a factor in there of how many students were filling out the survey, because I'm not sure that the 78% of the kids that were satisfied is the same as the 77% of last year, maybe even more than 2017, 78%, because we may have had more people filling out the survey.
It's fair. I can follow up with the complete survey and the participation rate, but all I can tell you is you just talked about volunteers and everything else. Trying to get people in a broader group filling out surveys is
It's
a real
difficult.
challenge. So that's where I'm putting that in context.
Okay.
If you're getting 3/4 of a student body, that's a very strong representative.
Okay.
And I don't remember the number. It's been a while
Sure.
since I've looked,
Sure.
but I'll send that report out.
It'd be nice just to have that as a frame of reference so we know what we're looking at.
Glad to do that.
I know one thing that's really changed for seniors is their classroom experience with Chromebooks versus not, in 2017, we weren't doing that as much. Okay, let's see, I had one other question. Let's see if I can figure it out really quick. Customer service. Oh, have we broken down and looked at why so much success in 8th grade and 11th grade? Like, what are we attributing that to? Is it our teachers? Is it that generation? Those kids are smarter. I mean, it's such a huge outlier from the rest of the age groups.
Well, and you have 6th grade that's really strong too. And
Yes.
there's a little dip in 7th grade, but again, well above the state. So it's not
Yes.
like anything. You have a sequence of curriculum.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's a lot of continuity between the 6, 8 grades. I don't know offhand. And I don't know if Amber has a quick idea, but it's been pretty consistent. The 8th grade has been just really solid.
Yeah.
That was one of our first cohorts to get the more rigorous math standards with our newer curriculum a handful of years ago. So they were the ones that saw the uptick initially on our RISE data and continued through COVID. And now they're
The illustrative math and that kind of stuff.
And and science just rocks all the time. It's just middle school science is just fabulous in terms of student achievement and how it comes together and it's so consistent.
I know there's so many variables, but it makes you think, should we have the 8th grade teachers? Be doing some special
Okay,
classes.
Are we okay to go on? Okay, so thank you, Mr. Sanderson. That report was great. We love it. We love to look at that every year. And now we're gonna go on to item D, for community council update, Susan Edwards, public engagement coordinator. And Alice Peck, is Alice Peck here?
She is.
Director of elementary principal.
I am passing around, this just came out today, so I thought it was relevant. It's not really part of this presentation. But this next year, $101 million distribution from the School Land Trust, which is the highest distribution ever. So that's really awesome news for them. So we have a unique opportunity that has kind of come before us. I think most of you that have been involved with school community councils forever have heard, you know, to have the land trust money, you have to have a land trust plan and an SCC that writes it, correct? Well, it is kind of, there's actually a bill that's running to support this a little bit, but it's actually come to our attention that a few of our schools will receive funding based on how they are lodged. So some part of this comes, Leon, will you tell me what the system is that we combined with Utrex? When they combined, used to the School Land Trust money was on its own financial system. It combined with Utrex a few years ago. Now that we get the reporting the way we do, every school that has a school number, I'm looking around at my support system here, a school number, and the students are coded in the system get money, but not all of them have a school community council or or will write a land trust plan. So you all as a board have the ability to write an exemption in certain cases. So I wanted to kind of go over the distribution, obviously all K-12 schools with an approved land trust plan by you all. And then you can exempt schools that have an unusually small student population or an alternative program. And one of those programs is the 18 to 22-year-old special needs program. They don't, it does not give money to students that are beyond 18 except for this one program. And so that's important to know. And then any school that closes or that has boundary changes, Leon can shift the money around a little bit later in the year after we get the distribution. So the ones we want to talk to you about, Gold Miner's Daughter, they have been considered part of Granite Elementary, but don't necessarily get their own funding. But if you are willing to write an exemption for them, which is fairly simple to do, they get approximately an $800 distribution each year, which doesn't sound like much, but they have less than 10 students. So that actually goes quite a way up at their school. They then also CTA downstairs here, they get an approximate distribution of $6,800. Again, if you're willing to write the distribution, write the exemption for them. In both cases, Alice will work with their directors, teacher, and principals and create the plan. They would not have an SCC and they would not have a traditional plan, but those plans would still come to you with the exemption if you approve. The other two that we would consider, and we're not requesting exemption for, Entrada has some students that are under 18. So there is a little bit of funding that comes there, but it's kind of a coding error on our part and we're working to fix that. So those that they technically will zero out and not have funding come to them on that. And then Canyons Online, that is still pending some board discussion and board approval on that one. But again, it would be a programmatic change that Leon could adjust later on, or we would come back to you for an exemption later on, depending on how that decision flows. So we hoped, sorry, that's the end. So we hope that the next meeting, we could bring back a couple of motions to exempt Gold Miner's Daughter and CTA. That's really all we have to do, is to turn that into the state, let them know that you have an approved an exemption, that these two fit into the category of in Gold Miner's very small and in CTA above 18 program that does fit the classification for an exemption.
Great, thank you.
Those plans would be included in all the plans that we provide to the board.
In April-ish.
April-ish.
Whenever we do that. I'll think about those plans after March.
We will see them and
Yes, just like every other plan.
okay, any questions? Okay, board, are we okay if we bring this back just on consent at our next meeting? And someone I assume will write the exemption. Okay,
Yes, we will.
great, okay, then board, thank you, Susan. We will move item E to item E of the. Oh, actually, item D. Item E will become item D. Okay, thank you, board. This meeting is adjourned. Let's just take a 5-minute break. And we will start again.
Give me a time.
Well, when.
I'm still fired up.
What?
Yes. Me and I went there.
Scott?
It was tight. Up and then running.
Ask your, kind of your thoughts.
You feel like we got.
No, that'll be. Thank you.
I think that's a great idea.
Leader.
I was point out. Now we've got.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Some of it is reflected. I don't think it's. Factor.
That's you can set up.
That is local, really. General trend.
Yes.
I think that very exact thing.
Oh, hey, did you say, hey? Yeah, got it all down, got some quality notes.
Okay. Just one sec. I was gonna read at the beginning, but I can't right now where anything. I would like to welcome everyone to the business meeting of the Canyons Board of Education. Today is February 7th, 2023. We are meeting at the district office located at 9361 South, 300 East in Sandy, Utah. I would like to excuse Mrs. Holly Nybar from this meeting. She may be joining us later. The first item is to approve the agenda for tonight, February 7th, 2023. If I can have a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for this evening for February 7th, 2023.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'm happy to second it, but I believe we have one item left over from study session. That
Yes,
needs to
thank
be
you for the clarification. I will make an amendment to my motion so I would like to make a motion to approve tonight's agenda for February 7th, 2023 with moving item E from study session down to item 8D. And that is specifically strategic vision, high quality learning focus area update.
Okay, is there a second to that motion? Amended motion?
I will second it, but just to, just kind of a clerical correction, it's item 70.
It's actually 8.
Is
It is 8.
There was
there's
a
a
slight
typo,
mistake,
number 7.
but it has since been corrected from what we understand.
Oh, all right, 8D, got it. I
Okay,
second that.
any discussion to that motion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mrs. Tingy. Yes. Okay, thank you. That passed unanimously. Now we'll be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Principal Tom Sherwood from Brighton High School, and then we will have him give us some school highlights.
Please repeat the pledge with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So it's my privilege tonight to give just a quick summary of some of the good things going on at Brighton High School. I was looking at some enrollment trend data. I feel like one of the biggest challenges we're facing currently at Brighton High School is enrollment. I saw my projections for next year, and the projections for next year have us well into 2,400 students, which is about 500 more than we had 5 years ago when I arrived. So Brighton's enjoyed some good growth over the last few years. And I attribute that to a lot of factors. We were discussing this in a school committee council meeting last week, and I do feel like Brighton's unique schedule is attractive. I think that Utah is a community, is a large community who values parent and school choice. And I feel that Brighton gives them a unique opportunity to choose something a little different than maybe some of the other schools have to offer. Some of the things that our schedule has allowed us to do that's unique is we noticed that our biggest concern for our graduating students was that literacy, we're pretty solid as a district and as a school. We were, about 90% of our students were graduating from high school at level with literacy. However, across the district and at Brighton High School, the number of students graduating from high school at grade level with numeracy is typically below 50%. So we've been really trying to make an effort to expand our math instruction, and the trimester has allowed us to teach math to any student who's not on an honors path for 3 trimesters, which has really helped boost their success rates and their comprehension. We've had a lot of positive community feedback about our math program. We implemented an advisory program, which has been a great addition to our school day. Really allowed teachers to focus on developing positive relationships with students, and also at the same time allow students to travel to teachers during the school day to receive help in any subject where they may need additional supports. The trimester allows for extended seat time for a lot of our AP students. And it's also allowed us to increase our concurrent enrollment opportunities, and that portion of our population has also been steadily increasing. In 2020, Brighton High School implemented an AP capstone diploma program. It's a diploma program that is done in collaboration with the College Board, where students start their sophomore year in a program of study where they need to take and pass 5 AP classes of their choice, but they also need to take AP Research and AP Seminar, which teaches them exceptional research skills. They submit the research projects via video to the College Board, and are graded on those presentations. I believe we've had 100% pass rate for our AP seminar students. They've done a tremendous job. And since the program started, we had about 40 graduates, which doesn't seem like a tremendous number, but it's a very rigorous program of study, and those students who complete it are competitive nationally at any of our universities. We have a tradition of hands-on learning experiences at Brighton. Some of you are familiar with our American Problem Simulations. It's a class that is taught almost exclusively through hands-on and simulation learning that most of the seniors that pass through Brighton High School take. If you ever want to see that class in action, it is something to witness. The students are very participatory, and the reviews are pretty positive across the board. We recently had an opportunity to have a collaboration with the Urban Planning Commission and present to the Cottonwood Heights City Council with a group of freshman students who did a tremendous job. We're proud of our robotics program. We support field trips. Our business department had a chance to go and visit several businesses and interact with those professionals and get to know what they do on the ground level. And we pride ourselves on providing some of those opportunities. In the past few years, we've had the opportunity at Brighton High School to expand our performing arts program significantly. Through help from the Board of Education, we were able to start a marching band, which has been tremendously successful. I have been pleasantly surprised with the amount of students that have chosen to participate in marching band, but even when I stood up and asked for a marching band, I didn't know the auxiliary stuff that included, including a color guard, a winter guard. Between the marching band, the color guard, the winter guard, we're reaching 100, 200 students that we weren't reaching before. They're involved in extracurricular activities that have found connections in our school, and are able to find a place where they belong and feel welcome. Our instrumental music program has expanded to 1.5 teachers. Our orchestra has excelled. Last year, they were recognized by the Foundation for Music Education with the Mark of Excellence. They send in a recording of their performance, and they were given the highest award from that organization. And they were invited to the UMEA conference last week in St. George as one of the exceptional orchestras in the state, and they did a great job. We also would like to thank the board for their investment in professional learning communities. Brighton High School I'll be the first to admit we struggled for my first 5 years at Brighton in getting a lot of traction with professional learning communities. And once we were granted some time on contract time this year, the progress has been exceptional. Last fall, we had an opportunity to have all of our content teams sit down and make 100-day plans for their professional learning communities. As administration, we had the opportunity to review those, and see, where they were currently and what they were trying to achieve in the first 100 days of school this year. And we had a faculty meeting last Friday where some of those teams were able to present their progress on the 100-day plans. And I'm happy to report that of the 5 content teams that presented, they not only had achieved their goals for their first 100 days, but exceeded them. They've all made more progress than they anticipated in their efforts towards developing high-quality professional learning communities. And I really attribute that to the time that the board allotted, and we really appreciate that. Last thing I want to really mention, and that is Brighton High School has benefited greatly from the new facility. Where the aesthetics of the building are amazing. Kids love to be there. It's very well lit, friendly, welcoming. Kids get there early, they stay late. It's a place they want to be. We're happy to have updated athletic facilities with equal access for all athletes. We were able to add some unique features to the new building, including a principal pantry, which has been invaluable in serving some of our underprivileged students in our community. So many good things. It's hard to highlight them all. I guess if I were just to summarize, I do see Brighton High School as a quality school of choice in this community. We've been able to hire a tremendous number of high quality teachers who really care about students and their well-being. We have amazing support staff, secretaries, coaches, custodians. I'm happy to report that in my 6 years at Brighton High School, this week is the first time we will have a full custodial staff. We hired our final custodian we hired this week. So we have I appreciate my administration. They're available and visible to students. We try to have something for everyone. We recently I actually received a notice today that the governor's wife, Abby Cox, is coming to our school to do a presentation with our unified basketball team playing an exhibition match with our varsity athletes in a couple of weeks. And I'm excited to showcase those things to the governor and others who will witness that. We've been really happy with the involvement of our unified sports. We've been involved in soccer, basketball, track, swimming for years, and we're happy with the progress that program has made. And lastly, the thing I want to mention is what makes Brighton successful is really our supportive and involved community. We have wonderful students, wonderful parents, and they get involved and do everything they can to help make Brighton the tremendous atmosphere that it is. So thank you for the opportunity to talk with you. I do have a little thing for you. I have a hat. These are for people with regular sized heads. If you happen to have a melon like me, then let me know and I'll get you a larger hat. So.
Oh, thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
I'll bring some melon. Yeah.
Also, would you invite the board to that event with the unified basketball team? I think that would be a lot of fun. Yeah, if you'll let us know. But thank you so much, and we really appreciate what you do and your staff, and please pass on our thanks to them. And thank you for being here. Thank you.
I'm not gonna stay.
Okay. Oh, come on. You know you want to. Okay, so we are next. We do not have any patron comment. So yes, I was a little stressed because I was like, I didn't see the paper, but we don't have any. So the next item on the agenda will be, I skipped recognitions. Anyway, first we'll have recognitions. So thank you. I'll turn the time over to Jeff Haney, Director of Communications, and Kirsten Stewart, Associate Director.
Thank you, President Schill, for this time to recognize the achievements of students, faculty, and staff in Canyon School District. Those who are mentioned tonight will receive a letter of commendation from the board and the superintendent. Our first honorees tonight made history with a big win at the state cheer competition. You'll see here some of the amazing moves of Corner Canyon's cheer squad. They charged to the top of the first ever state championship in competitive cheer. Now, Utah teams and schools have long had cheerleaders on the sidelines to support our student activities. But this is the first year that cheer has been a sanctioned sport of the Utah High School Activities Association. We went to the state competition and we saw our teams perform amazing, innovative, and difficult lifts and perfectly choreographed dances and tumbling maneuvers. Corner Canyon was simply phenomenal. All of our other high schools that qualified to perform were fantastic as well. But at the end of the day, Corner Canyon was announced as the winners of the 6A all-girl cheer contest. So congratulations to the Corner Canyon cheer squad. This time we're cheering for the cheerleaders. Congratulations to the Chargers. We also give a big shout out to Hillcrest Drill. On Saturday, they finished in the top 5 at the 5A High School Activities Association's drill team competition. It was held at Utah Valley University. They had 3 stellar performances in dance, military, and show. Hillcrest, they placed 5th overall in this unbelievably tough competition. It was pretty darn amazing watching all of those teams that qualified for the final round of judging. Canyon's district schools made up a third of all of the teams that qualified for the final round of judging. Hillcrest, Brighton, and Jordan were 3 of the top 9 5A drill teams. That's definitely something we can brag about. All 3 of those schools represented the district with class, grace, and a heck of a lot of talent and skill. You can see the photographs of our teams performing at the state competition there. You'll see Hillcrest at the top. They placed in the top 5 in every category. Jordan, which won the wild card to make it into the finals, and Brighton that also qualified to compete in the final round of competition. So congratulations to Hillcrest Drill, the Brighton Acadians, and the Jordan Charlottans. Our next honorees are the amazing student artists who were picked as winners in a prestigious art show. 7 Canyons District student artists won awards at the 51st Annual All-State High School Art Show, which is shown at the Springville Art Museum. They not only had their work selected to be shown as part of the exhibit, but they also won awards in this fantastic all-state art show. You'll see here that we have Ashley Martin from Jordan High School, who won a Jurors Award of Merit, as did Hades Gardner from Brighton High School and North Rust from Corner Canyon High. A 3rd Congressional District Award was given to Jacob Johansson from Brighton High School, and the Utah Senate Visual Art Awards winner was, in 3rd place, Amelia Young from Brighton High School. An honorable mention was given to Annika Amundsen from Hillcrest High School, and a USBE award was given to Emerson Nenges from Hillcrest High. So congratulations to all of our student artists who not only had their work selected to be shown at the Springville Art Museum, but also placed in that very prestigious high school art show. The next students that we want to thank and to mention belong to Alta High School's esports team. They deserve the moment in the spotlight, even more so than the spotlight they received on Monday at the state capitol. Alta High's championship esports team was the featured attraction at the state capitol, with a lot of lawmakers, lobbyists, members of the public who were there at the capitol to watch the public's business being done. They represented Canyons District as our students at the booth for the USBA Day on the Hill. More than a few legislators and governor's aides were spotted joining Dr. Robbins and the students in testing their Smash Brother skills against the Alta Hawks, who are the 2022 Ultimate Smash Brother champions. Students from other districts at their other booths also left their booths to come over to ours to play video games with the Alta High students. It truly was the featured attraction in the rotunda for most of the day. And a big thanks to advisor Aaron Edwards, who you may know better as Susan's son, who is an Alta High teacher and the advisor of the esports group. He stayed there the entire day with his students. He put in a lot of effort to make the day special. I mean, he even carried a big screen TV on a school bus as to make it part of a very fun booth for the esports team at Alta High School. So thanks to all of the students who were there to support us and to represent the district at USBA Day on the Hill. Our next honorees are the men and women who make up our team of school counselors. It is National School Counselor Appreciation Week, and the administration, as you can see here, is visiting our counselors to develop treats and plants and posters to all of the counseling centers in our schools. The message on the vibrant poster shares the theme for this celebratory week. It was chosen by the American School Counselors Association, and that theme is School Counselors Helping Students Dream Big. Canyons has 74 counselors who help kids of all ages deal with emotions, no matter how big or small. These counselors also help students with registration and matriculation and all of the academic advising and planning and so much more. The counselors do an excellent job of making sure our students get across the graduation finish line. So please join us in thanking our counselors for the amazing work that they do for National School Counselor Appreciation Week. And finally, it is cold outside, but we want you to gear up and hit the road for the Canyons Education Foundation for the Love of Education 5K. I asked Denise if I could get the 007 number for my bib, and she said no, it had already been taken. And she said that I needed to wear this while I'm running. It is a beanie that you'll get when you sign up to participate in the 5K for the Canyons Education Foundation. Those who participate will log 3.1 miles on their own. It's a virtual fun run anytime between February 1st and February 28th. It's $20 to register. It goes to the Education Foundation. The foundation then supports stocking the Canyons District Resource Closet. The Resource Closet provides food, clothing, shoes, school supplies, hygiene items for students in need. You can sign up on the website, and if you do, then you'll get one of these really cool beanies. She asked me to put it on. I don't mind at all. We're supporting the foundation there. I will be running this. I will be logging my miles at Orange Theory, but still I will be participating in the 5K for the foundation. So go to the website, sign up, be a part of this 5K, which is for the love of education in the month of February. A lot of state competitions are coming up in the coming weeks. We wish a lot of our student athletes a lot of luck. The first round of boys and girls basketball starts on February 21st, and February 22nd is the next round. Swimmers will vie for state titles on February 17th and February 18th, and wrestlers hit the mats for state trophies February 15th through February 18th. So good luck to the Hawks, the Bengals, the Chargers, the Huskies, and the Beat Diggers who qualified to compete in state competitions. President Schill, that was a very hot beanie for even for a short period of time. Well, thank you, Mont. I appreciate that. We thank you for this time, President Schill, members of the board, for allowing us this time to recognize those in the Canyon School District who have gone above and beyond in helping us create and build and maintain a world-class school district.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Haney. I do have one question for the fun run, about the fun run.
Yes.
Do you have to run?
No.
Could you actually walk?
You can walk, you can wheel, you can run, you can do anything as long as you put in the miles.
That's great. Okay,
Actually
thank
pay
you.
your money, then put in the miles.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Do you want me to send that to you? It's on the website. It's on the foundation's website.
Oh, on the foundation's website. Okay, great. We'll look for that.
Okay.
Okay,
There's
thank you
also
so much.
links on our social media pages. So if you go there, you can find that, sign up, participate. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so there are no patron comments. So we will go on to item number 7, which is the consent agenda. So I'll ask for a motion, and please read the items individually.
I'd like to move that we adopt the consent agenda. Item A, approval of the minutes from January 17th, 2023 board meeting. Item B, approval of hire and termination reports. Item C, approval of purchasing bids. Item D, approval of student overnight travel. Item E, approval of local education agency CSD specific licenses and endorsements.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion to the consent agenda items? Okay, seeing no discussion, I will ask for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Okay, now we will go on to item 8, new business. And the first item on the agenda is item A, Copperview Comprehensive School Improvement Plan. First reading by Wendy Dow, Director of Federal and State Programs.
Good evening. I brought some help. So we have Colleen Smith, the principal at Copperview, and also Alice Peck, who is our school performance director that is over Copperview as we go through this plan. There's a lot of information in here, so I'm going to go through it pretty quickly and focus mostly on the plan that's going to affect the Copperview staff. And then if you have individual questions, obviously afterwards, I'm happy to answer those. But I'm hoping that you previewed most of the information ahead of time. First off, I just want to give a shout out to all of the people that went to putting this plan together, because I think it's really important that people see this as a collaborative effort, that Colleen kind of had the vision for what this was going to look like. Nate Edvilson, who's our Director of Special Education, Amber Roderick, who's our Director of Instructional Supports, Alice Peck in School Performance, and myself then met as a subgroup and then pushed it out to all of the directors and gave feedback and eventually to cabinet. So just really grateful for all of the eyes that have been on this to try to support Copperview as it goes into comprehensive school improvement. There's a clicker. Excellent. I was like, oh, what am I going to do? Okay, so let's start with just a quick overview of Copperview. 400 students, some highlights here. Notice that 40% of the population is multilingual, with Spanish being our primary language. Our low-income population is at 65%. That gets a little deceiving because it does qualify for community eligibility provisions. So all of the students do receive free breakfast and lunch. But when we actually look at the numbers of families of 4 that earn less than $28,000 a year, that number's at 65%, to just kind of put that in perspective. And then note as well that its mobility rate is 28%. So one of our highest in the district. This gives us a breakdown of our racial and ethnic background. So we have a majority of our students being Caucasian and Hispanic. And then this is some very interesting data. We have 21 licensed teachers at Copperview Elementary, with 11 of them, that constitutes 52% of them are in their first year of teaching. 15 total, so 71% of them are within their first 3 years of teaching. So a lot of really energetic educators, love that, but also still acquiring all of those skills, and they're awesome, and they've been working really great with Colleen, and so it doesn't. Sometimes people get nervous when there's provisional teachers. I get excited because they want to learn all of those new skills. We do have 2 administrators. We have Colleen and an assistant principal, and then 2 instructional coaches. And then we have other licensed staff. We have 3 social work. We have a total of 3 SEL staff with social workers and a school psychologist. We do have a full-time community school facilitator, and we do have a Hopeful Beginnings therapist. But as Colleen noted, there aren't very many spots reserved for that therapy for students, but Brian did indicate to me this morning that they have opened up more availability, and we are about to get an MOU put together for the Multicultural Counseling Center to offer up more supports for families as well. And then we also have an awesome staff that supports our teachers. So we have instructional assistants, brain booster technicians, student intervention mentors. Our extended learning facilitator runs our after school program and also our summer school program. We have a family learning center coordinator that runs all of our English classes. And we have a specific assistance for our multilingual students. So that's kind of a snapshot of Copperview. And so we want to just talk a little bit about how Copperview ended up in CSI status. So the way you identify as a CSI school is you have to be in the lowest performing 5% of Title I schools for 3 years on average. And so if you noted, Copperview was a school in targeted school improvement in several student group categories, multilingual students, special education students, low-income students. And now this is looking at its whole school performance. And so it doesn't just focus on individual student groups. You are able to exit out of CSI status after 4 years. So we have to show that we're able to perform above that 5% over the next 4 years in order for it to exit. The way that the school is classified into CSI status is because of the school report card. So that's based on achievement, on growth, all measured through RISE data, our progress of our English learners. They call it EL progress. Our district calls it ML progress. It's the same thing. And the growth of the lowest performing quartile. So the students that are in the bottom 25%, what does their growth look like? So they're actually counted in 2 categories. So if we really want to get some momentum, we need to focus on the lowest performing students. So that kind of tells you the total number of points possible. We can go through each one of these pretty quickly. So achievement based on RISE scores split up between language arts, math, science, 3rd through 5th grade. It gives you the formula. We also have a growth indicator. This was calculated a little bit differently this past year because we did not have data from the 2021 test because it was not an accountability year. So they assigned each student a student growth target. And so then they gave students numbers based on whether or not they met that target and what percentile their student growth actually ended up in on that scale. So our growth scores are across the state a little bit inflated. So kind of keep that in mind and don't be surprised if you see a little bit of our growth scores going down this year. And then our lowest quartile growth, same thing, except we're just counting that bottom 25% of the students. With English learner progress, it is a little bit tricky because this is done through WIDA Access, which is our, it's an annual exam that we use to measure language proficiency of our multilingual students. And when they are looking at proficiency, the WIDA is done on a 1 through 6 scale technically. Once you hit 5, you're seen as proficient. So it gives us a total number of students that are proficient. And then it's on the initial date when a student enters into Utah and starts receiving language services, how long they're at that level, how much support they're receiving, and how much growth they make. So when we look at Copperview's total scores, you'll notice that they had 8 out of 56 in achievement, 27 out of 56 in growth, 11 out of 25 in the lowest quartile growth, and 2 out of 13 for English learner progress, putting its total scores at 48 out of 150. And then I just broke it down because on the school report card, it has it through proficiency, tried to highlight those things that are in red that certainly would be cause for concern where we're significantly below the state and district average. So you have math proficiency, math growth, although certainly much higher, still much below where we would want them to be in terms of district and state numbers. Our science scores, teachers today, as we were meeting with the consultants, were noticing that science was an area that we needed a lot of improvement. And then here's our growth of the lowest quartile at 43.6% of those students are exceeding those levels that we want them to, and our district and state averages are sitting at 61%. For our English learners, 19.4% of the students are making adequate progress. For the district, it's 35%, state 39%, and English learners reaching that level 5 on the WIDA is a 0.8%, whereas our district and state averages are 5%. And then also early literacy, the percent of our students on grade level, 20% for Copperview, whereas our district average is at 50%, and those making typical or better progress, 42.4% with a comparison for the district of 66%. So that just kind of gives you an idea of what we're working with in terms of Copperview. So as we look at this, Copperview's been in this targeted school improvement status for a while. And so we really tried to think of some ways to kind of energize Copperview and to give it the tools that it needs to be successful and to move forward. So, and Colleen went through and prioritized these. We brainstormed like a ton of different things, and then Leon comes in and gets you all reasonable with the money part of things, because you always have a lot more desires in terms of what we actually have funding for. So priority number one was to do some restructuring of the staff and of its contracts. So one of the things that we're proposing is that we add 8 additional mandatory contract days for all licensed educators for the purpose of providing that professional learning and support. That will total with those licensed employees $99,900. It's on average an additional $3,700 a year that these employees would earn. And then that professional learning, those days would be staggered, and I can talk more about that calendar in just a minute, throughout the school year. So some of them would be, 5 of them would be at the very beginning of the school year. And then there would be some half days on Saturdays throughout the school year, and then a day and a half at the end of the school year. Teachers need that coaching support throughout the year, not just at the beginning. And then we would do 2 additional mandatory contract days for our ESPs to provide professional learning for them. That totals an additional $2,400 with 10, on average, 10 ESPs there. The biggest component of this is we would like to look at a proposal to rehire the teachers because of the changes to this contract. These teachers that are currently at Copperview were hired on a 186-day contract. We're adding 8 days. We're definitely changing what their job is looking like. And so with the help of huge shout out to Human Resources, Steve Diamond and Sally and Kelly, who helped us craft what those staff restructuring procedures would be, so that we could post those positions. If a teacher didn't want to interview for a position at Copperview, they could indicate as such, and they would be guaranteed a position at a 186-day contract somewhere else in the district at an elementary school. So there would be no issue with them retaining a job within Canyons District. This would allow Colleen to really recruit the teachers that have the skills that we're needing at Copperview, and those that are willing to. This is going to be a lot of work. So the individuals that are willing to go through this additional training and really put forth these efforts. And it does provide that opportunity. If a teacher is just like, I don't know that I want to sign up for this, they have the option of going to a different school, and that job is guaranteed for them. And I'll talk more about the timeline towards the end. It does require the adoption of a special calendar, and I did link what that looked like, worked through that with Colleen, providing some of those days at the beginning, and like I said, scattered throughout the year. And then we would, Colleen, it's very important that she has input on who her coaches are, that they are very well trained in reading, math, and intensive behavior supports. Priority number 2 is to provide some incentives, because this is going to be significant work for teachers. We want individuals to be rewarded for that. And so there will be 2 different types of incentives, one of which is a school-wide incentive that would be based on, usually it's going to be tied to a type of behavior that we're trying to get from students. So it's about rewarding the adults for giving out PBIS rewards or things like that. The school would set what that goal is, and all faculty and staff would be eligible for this. So if the school meets their goal each quarter, then every single individual in that building that works would get $100 each quarter that goal is met. We felt it was very important in changing and helping shape that school climate that every employee is eligible for that bonus. Then we would adjust those targets. If we need to adjust them quarter to quarter, year to year, we would do so. And then we have grade level academic incentives. So this would be for individuals that are directly responsible for the instruction of the students. So this would be instructional assistants would be eligible for this. Even in so much as we have social workers that are working with students on specific goals for behavior, they would be eligible for these bonuses as well. They would have to set their goals specifically with the administration to determine what that looks like in their particular field. But for most teachers, what we would do is we would have a reading growth goal and a proficiency goal, a math growth goal and proficiency goal. And there could be a mid-year payout so that you can kind of see that progress. You don't have to wait all the way to the end of the year to receive that bonus. We would use Acadience math and Acadience reading data to measure that, as well as possibly reading inventory for grades 4 and 5. The school would set those goals. Instructional supports will be very helpful to us as we look at our data and determine what would be some reasonable goals as we're trying to move out of comprehensive school improvement. Notice that the bonuses go up each year. So for the first year, a teacher could earn up to an additional $2,000 in year 2. Those bonuses increase to $3,000, year 3, $4,000. The goals are going to become more ambitious as time goes on. So the teachers we felt needed to be rewarded with that, as well as instructional assistants. What if an instructional assistant works at more than one grade level? Just as long as one of the grade levels that they're working with meets the goal, then they would be eligible for that bonus. They would not get multiple bonuses if multiple grade levels reach those goals, but they would at least be guaranteed access to the bonus of at least one of those. Oh, and I should probably talk about the money part. So the money part is in year 1, those incentives would cost $84,000, and because they're going up, year 2, $126,000, year 3, $168,000. And then at priority 3 is additional staffing. We would like to propose having an additional assistant principal assigned to Copperview, being paid for from ESSER money for next year. The total that we have in salary and benefits would be $143,000. This needs to be an experienced person. This can't be a brand new assistant principal, someone who would really help to work with the other assistant principal that is currently at Copperview, and creating a team that can help work through behavior, and then allowing Colleen to have more time for instruction. And then year 2, we would drop that to a half-time, and year 3, we feel like the position could be eliminated at that point in time. We're hoping that the school would be in a position to just continue to move forward in a positive way. So you'll see those numbers at the top: 143,000, 71,500, year 2. Additional kindergarten teacher to have 4 full-day kindergartens. Amber Roderick shared with us some data at a training where if students are exiting kindergarten well below benchmark, they never catch up ever in their entire educational career, like ever. And so as we were looking at that, we really felt like kindergarten, I know, depressing. I know, see, you got really depressed, didn't you? I am the dream killer, I'm sorry, but it really, it's, she said it a lot nicer than I did, but they have to continue to be an intervention. So for all through high school. So that just seems very depressing to me. So as we were looking at that, we felt like adding an additional kindergarten teacher. Her current class sizes are sitting at 28, which I can't even fathom what 28 kindergartners would seem like. So having manageable class sizes there, I think, would be really important. That does not cost additional money because of she would use current FTE to be able to support that. And then an additional special education teacher. So Colleen has allocation right now for paraprofessionals. She would just like to reallocate those resources to increase it to 3 teachers and 2 25-hour paraprofessionals. And that would only increase the cost by $20,000 each year for that change out. And then priority number 4, to increase the number of brain boosters to 4. We currently have 3. We've even talked about making one of those brain booster teachers a full-time teacher. We could supplement that with Title I money, but that will be something that we talk about once we get our Title I funding to see if that's something that is still a priority at that point. So magic numbers right here for year 1, $395,300, year 2, $365,800, year 3, $336,300. So next steps. First off, our request is to get this proposal added to the consent agenda for our February 21st board meeting. The reason for that is because we are on a very tight timeline if we are going to restructure this staff. So that would mean the very next day, we would use the involuntary transfer policy to make this happen. So the letter would go out to the teaching staff. If they want to apply for jobs at Copperview, they would indicate that, they would start interviewing for those particular jobs. They could start doing that as early as February 24th. Those positions would be posted. Anyone in the district could apply for those positions that would like an opportunity to work at Copperview. That means that Copperview teaching positions would all have to be hired by March 8th. So I think it gives her like 8 days for interviewing. She was like, I'm fine. It'll be fine. So 8 days to get her staff hired. And then that still allows us to begin the regular hiring process for all Canyon schools. We do not want to do anything that's going to jeopardize that hiring process for the rest of the district. But we felt like this was a very important piece to our puzzle of trying to help Copperview restructure. We are going to meet with the Copperview faculty tomorrow morning to answer any questions that they have. I'm sure as soon as you say, well, you got to re-interview, people are going to be concerned about what that looks like. We want to make sure that they're feeling really comfortable and confident about what that is and what that process will look like, and be assured that they are going to have a job and that they can rest assured of that and not be nervous about those things. We have already administered the comprehensive assessment of leadership for learning survey, which measures staff perceptions. They then basically correlate that data with all of the data that they've gathered over the past 2 days. They've interviewed every teacher, staff member. They've done focus groups with students and parents already. And so they correlate that data to see if the perceptions of the school are aligning with what the data show. So, and then that allows us to kind of fine tune our focal points. So then we do have to make a school improvement team. It does include a board member. It will have to include a parent. That's part of this process. They have already assigned us a consultant, and they are helping us with our comprehensive needs assessment and root cause analysis, which will be finished in March. And then they'll just continue to develop their action plan. We do have to send a letter to the community indicating that Copperview is in comprehensive school improvement status, and that communication will be going out to that community about what that looks like. Questions?
Okay, board, it's our time to ask questions. Oh, I think, can we have the superintendent make a comment first, and then we'll start with Mrs. Oak.
Thank you, President Schill. First, I just want to tell Wendy, thank you for this presentation, and also Colleen and Alice and our team. We've been talking about this for a while, and I just want to lend my support. This is very innovative. Obviously, it's very aggressive. If you think about the process of change, I think we really got to start with what the why is, right? And I think that's very clear and imminent. So I think it's very justified. And then a move to the what and the how. And you look at those domains of turnaround leadership, talent development, instructional transformation, and culture shift, grounded in core subject areas along with behavior. I really believe that this could serve as a model for other schools that may end up in this situation. But I fully support this. I think it's warranted. I know it's going to put many people a little bit at unease, but I think this could really serve as a model going forward to address some of these gaps and disparities that are there. So I'm very proud of the efforts that have been put forward, and I have full confidence in Colleen as our principal. Been to her school many times and been at her faculty meetings and trying to understand the needs that are at Copperview. So I just appreciate all the efforts being made and the thought that's been put into this plan.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent. And now we'll start with Mrs. Oakes, and then I think Mrs. Tingy will be next.
So thanks for the presentation. I know there are a lot of great minds that have gone into this plan, and it looks really amazing. And I'm excited for these kids to have some real love and attention given to them this way. It's awesome. One of the questions I have goes back to when I served on the state's K-5 and 9-12 Science Standards Review Committee. And that was an amazing experience, in part because the educators that they had on the committee that they had chosen were incredible and had remarkable experiences and data from their own classrooms of what works in teaching science. And as board members, we receive a steady stream of information from NSBA with links to articles. And one of them that I read today, I thought was interesting, and I hadn't thought about connecting it until your presentation, but it talked about the importance of experiential learning and shrinking early disparities in science and math. And that a lot of times our Title I schools are the ones that get left behind with those types of things. But they talked about the importance of that. These are NGSS experts that are talking about this, and the importance of giving kids hands-on experiences very early on. Whether it's just looking at worms through a microscope outside or just they gave very different a bunch of different examples that are simple, yet they make a profound difference in engaging a child's interest early on. So I'm curious, sorry, that's a long prelude to the question, whether or not discussions have been had about how to teach some of these. I know that we're going to have amazing staff, but are we going to allow them some flexibility in being able to do things that will reach kids differently, particularly when they speak another language? But hands-on learning kind of crosses some of those language barriers.
So one of the big pieces that goes into this is once this gets adopted and once we get the comprehensive needs assessment back, then the school crafts a 90-day plan, and that becomes the specific steps as to how that happens. So those types of things would go into that plan. We have to restructure what the classroom is going to look like, because if we keep doing what we're doing, it's not going to work. So to your point, yes, that would go into those 90-day plans.
Yeah, the drill and kill I don't think is going to help these kids, right? But I think when a child learns to love something that they're learning about, it engages them differently and provides a different kind of motivation. So anyway, that's kind of, as you've been sharing your presentation, that's a lot of what's going through my mind. How are we going to engage them differently and more meaningfully? So
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Mrs. Tingy.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for this information and for all the thought and the work that's gone into it. It takes me back. We've kind of been through this with Midvale a little bit. So I have a couple of questions. You mentioned the mobility factor being one of the highest in the district. How does that play into kind of crafting the goals and the results?
So it's a great question. So we actually disaggregated some data today because we were making an incorrect assumption when we felt like our lowest quartile students were our most mobile students. And in fact, our lowest quartile students are the ones that actually have been consistently at the school. So the mobility piece is, according to the data that we're looking at, it's not pronouncing itself as much as we would think that it would. To Colleen's point, as we met with the consultants today, we talked about how the school does a really good job when there's a brand new student. Like, we're right there, we're trying to help them out, but what are we doing for the students who have been there consistently? So we do have to take it into account as and attendance is going to be another piece of this, right? When you look at that, only 46% of the students are on track in terms of their attendance, they're also missing instruction. So those two pieces have to be addressed in those action plans moving forward. And I think a big piece that they're already looking at is that school climate piece. Do kids want to be there? Are they enjoying the learning, to Amanda's point of what they're doing, and do they find it relevant and engaging? So that will have to be incorporated into that 90-day plan as well.
Okay, great, thank you. And another question too, this the state consultants, right, that we're required to work with, and I think I understand it, how their work interfaces with this proposal. It seems to me like this proposal is creating a structure for then the consultants to work with and provide some of that information about instructional techniques and
Yes.
and identifying different goals and things to work on specifically for the school once this new structure is in place.
That's correct. So that needs assessment and that root cause analysis will help inform those action plans consistently throughout the process. So.
And then final question is, So the funding, throughout the proposal, you mentioned some of it would be funded from ESSER's funds and some from special education funds and
Early at-risk
early
funding.
at-risk funding, things
Leon,
like that.
I'm gonna move to you.
So I guess I'm just wondering if we could maybe, I mean, you've got the total dollars here, but maybe just a chart that would say where that funding's coming from and how much, we would need to, as a board, actually alter our budget.
Yeah, most of it will have to come out of just our general fund. We know ESSER's goes next year. We'll probably just pay the proposed VP out of that, but most of it's just gonna have to come out of our general fund. But we feel like this is such a priority. We saw the results there. We've got to do something to move the needle at this school. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Millerberg.
I just feel like it's one of my children that went away. Copperview for so many years was one of the schools that I represented, and through the redistricting at the time of the census, it moved. Andrew, that's one of your schools now, but it's still part of my community. It's still part of where I live, and so it's important to me. And I look at this plan. And Colleen, you ought to be able to attract the best and the brightest of our teachers. You do a little quick math problem on that, and I came up with about a $6,100 pay increase for a teacher that wants to go there, that has the moxie to be successful in that community. That's a big deal. I mean, if you base that off of the first year teacher's salary, that's about an 11% pay increase. Now that percent goes down as you get into the more veteran teachers, which I'm sure you're going to be looking at many of those, but that's a very aggressive and hopefully one that will be successful with the plan to bring Copperview up. I look at the factors you have working against you is that you've got mobility, you've got demographics, you've got the attendance issue. But when we stop and think about it, that every child matters. And to have them come through and be successful in the education process will help them break the cycle to where they can be productive individuals and qualified for good jobs when they go through the school system. So I applaud your efforts. I applaud what you're doing. And I've got both fingers crossed, hoping it's so far. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Edo.
Yeah, so I don't have any questions, but I did want to say that I appreciate this comprehensive plan, and really to go along with Mont, each of these students matter, and we really have a responsibility to make sure that that they succeed and that we really help this community.
I think one of the things that was very interesting when we were talking about this in cabinet was it wasn't that this was a Copperview issue. It was we were all coming together as a district because these are our kids, right? So I think that I hope Copperview is feeling that. I hope they will continue to feel that this isn't, they're just not in this alone, that this is something we're all here to help them through this. So.
Okay, great. I just want to add my thanks to you and I guess all the others that have worked on this plan. I think it looks really good and I'm excited to see the results. So board, are we all okay with just bringing it back next meeting on consent? Yes, Mr. Milberg.
To your question, yes, I'm very much in favor of it. The question I have is I will not be able to be in attendance on the 21st. I will be gone. Is there, and to me, it's important that I vote on that. Is there any way I can do a proxy vote and give a proxy to anybody?
No, I don't think that is allowed. You could say right now that you're in favor, which you just did.
Put it in the record.
What you just did.
I think I just did that.
Yes. Okay, okay, so we'll just bring that back on consent next meeting. Okay, thank you. Now on to the next item on the agenda. It's item B. And it is district case management team, secondary proposal. First reading, Wendy Dow, Director of Federal and State Programs.
I have sidekicks all night long. It's awesome. I have Cindy Hansen here as well. She serves as the individual on school performance on district case management team, and I'm the facilitator of this particular program. So district case managed team, what is it? What is DCMT? You'll hear us say we're going to send this kid to DCMT. It's like, what is this? Like, what is happening here? It's just a problem solving team. It has individuals from student services. Dr. McGill sits on this. Nate Edvilson, our special ed director, sits on it, school performance. And then we have a lot of support staff, particularly from student services. And then we have an assistant principal from every middle school and high school. So there is a separate committee for middle schools and a separate committee for the high schools. And we handle what are known as safe schools incidents. So this deals with student behavior where it really is creating a problem for the safety of the school as a whole. We have a levels of behavior document where we kind of rank student behavior in terms of severity on a scale of 1 to 5. These levels of behavior that are immediately going to DCMT are a level 4 or a 5. Sometimes a level 3 behavior like fighting generally is school managed, but if it's repeated or if it's creating a ruckus within the entire school community for whatever reason, then it can be referred to DCMT. And so what we look at is this committee looks at what's happened with the student and determines if they need a change of placement and what supports the student might need. So our current continuum is this. So the top row is all of the ways in which a student can be referred into the different placements, which is the bottom row. So as a student that's coming out of a treatment program or through youth and care, a student that's coming through the juvenile justice system, we do have a district support team system, and then DCMT is our disciplinary route where we're dealing with school discipline. We can put them into basically one of 5 settings. We can put them back at their school because maybe it was just a mistake and we recognize that the student just needs some additional support. Sometimes we put them into a different school. Sometimes we restrict their setting at the school. We also have a special program known as Youth Academy. We have a site at Eastmont, and we also have a site at Diamond Ridge where the student is receiving a lot of behavior instruction and social and emotional support. We do have a home and hospital campus where there is a special education teacher and a regular education teacher where students are working on online and on packets, but they don't have to, it's in a portable at CTEC. They don't have to deal with a lot of the, they don't have a lot of contact with a large number of students. And then we have home and hospital where the student is actually at home. This would be for a student who's say, on house arrest, something like that. So there's something more extreme with the student's behavior, that happened either outside of school or in school. So all of these students are coming through here and they're being placed on this continuum. The problem that's happening that we're finding is that a lot of the students in particular that are coming out of treatment programs need a lot of social and emotional support. Some of them are very vulnerable. And then I have students who are very aggressive in some behaviors and who are safe school violators. And I'm putting them in some cases into the same system. And so that creates a lot of strain and a lot of stress. And so sometimes when we're dealing with a DCMT case, we would really like to put the student at Youth Academy, but because of the makeup of the other students and the supports that they're receiving there, we can't place them there. And so we either have to go to a homebound instruction setting or we have to place them in another school and they're just not getting the supports that we needed. So that's what's happening right now. Just so you can kind of see our DCMT referrals in 2021, we had 19. In 2022, we had 84, and already we have 94 cases up to this point. So we really do need a different set of placement options for these students that are coming through these safe schools situations and separate them out from the students who are more vulnerable and who have these extensive social and emotional needs. So just so that you know where we placed those 94 students, so far we've had 32 that we've returned to their school. That can be like a kid brings an Orby, an Orby gun to school or something like that, where they think it's fun because it's a toy and they don't realize, no, that's a facsimile of a weapon. You cannot bring that to school. We go through a process and we do return them to their boundary school. We re-educate them. Sometimes we need to put them in a different school setting. We have 22 that are at Youth Academy that have been at Youth Academy over the course of this year. We have 15 on the home and hospital campus and 6 that are at home on homebound instruction. We would have had more placements at Youth Academy if we had had that available, but because we don't want to mix some of those students, then we've had to place them sometimes in a different school. The average length of time for a placement, Youth Academy, is anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. We usually keep them there for about a quarter, is when I went in and looked at those 22. Most of them are at Youth Academy for an entire quarter. And our home and hospital placements are ranging around 6 weeks because they graduate out of that. They don't like home and hospital because they don't have access to peers at home and hospital. So they're working hard to move into Youth Academy or into a school setting. So they like the social aspects of things. So in talking with our team, we really do need an additional continuum of services just for these safe school students. So it's going to look exactly like the continuum that we have right now. It's just a duplicate, and it's just for those cases that are coming through DCMT itself, where it's a safe schools referral. This would also require that if a student is coming out of the juvenile justice system, particularly for something that's very aggressive or concerning, we would want to we have been running those students through DCMT as if it's a safe, because it is presenting a safety issue to the school to reintroduce that student. So looking at the continuum of services and deciding which placement that they need to be in. And so we would use that same continuum. So to run that, we're going to need 2 full-time teachers at an additional Youth Academy and 1 educational therapist. We'd have 1 teacher that would be dedicated to the middle schools and 1 teacher that would be dedicated to the high school. It is a reduced schedule. It's still usually 5 to 6 hours a day. Transportation is provided, and they would work with that teacher on online coursework. They could do packets if they needed credit recovery if they're a high school student. It allows us to separate those middle school and high school students. We can even do alternating schedules. We needed to separate certain students. It gives us that flexibility to do so. And then the educational therapist would just work on skill building. So conflict resolution. So, instead of getting in a fight or assault or things like that, how do I learn to manage my emotions, and what does that look like so I can make better choices? Location is to be determined, but we do have some suggestions that wouldn't require additional resources. It would just require some restructuring of some things with my department. I think we could make that doable. The home and hospital campus, we would need a full-time teacher for this as well. Students are going to attend on a reduced schedule. Generally, they go 2 to 4 hours a day, and we can stagger those times as well. So we can run some students Monday, Wednesday, some students Tuesday, Thursday. We can do that to keep students separated if we need to for whatever reason. Transportation would be provided, and same thing, we will determine location, but it shouldn't require any additional resources there. And then we would also have at-home instruction. We would just use the teacher from the home and hospital campus. We can also use teachers at our boundary school, and they just go in and work with the student 1 time a week, usually via Zoom, and they're supporting online, or they're supporting packets. If they're doing credit recovery, they can go that route as well. And then that location is in the student's home. So we don't need any additional FTE for that. So our goals, this helps keep our schools safe. If we don't get this continuum at some point, then what ends up happening is when that student comes to DCMT, let's say the student is an Alta High School student, then my option is, if I don't have that continuum, then I'm like, okay, are they going to Jordan? Am I going to move them to Corner Canyon? Where am I going to move them? It's not providing them with the environment that they need, where we can reteach them some of the skills that they need and with the behaviors that we're dealing with. So it allows us to support students with those behavioral challenges. They can understand the impact of their actions, but it also provides some ease with the principals that they're keeping their schools safe, and they earn their way back. So I'm pretty strict, so they have to earn, like, there's a whole list of requirements of things they have to do. It's pretty tough. Like, I do not make this easy. And if they don't follow that, then they get bounced into a more restrictive environment. If they follow it, then they move up. So the goal is always to get them back to a regular school, right? Over time. So they're earning their way back to that and earning that trust back, that restorative piece, so that they can be part of a school community again. This continuum would allow us to support 100+ students. You notice we have 94 that have already come through DCMT, so it's going to become more and more important in that. So funding, we would need 4 FTE total. As we presented to the middle schools and high schools, we agreed that we could do 2 FTE. Even the high schools were willing to fund the entire 2 FTE split across those schools. But it would still fund the middle schools, so 6 through 12, or we could even do 2 FTE split across all secondary schools. And then 2 FTE would come from district-based funds. It would come from that at-risk funding. We would evaluate this each year, and it would be part of the district's annual budget process. And we would just look at needs and keep track of that data to see if we needed to continue it or how we needed to adjust it. Questions?
Okay, thank you. Mr. Edel and then Mrs. Sweeney.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. So this would create separate classes at isolated locations?
Yes, so it's going to create, basically it would be, right now we already have that. So we have a youth academy that has 2 portables at Diamond Ridge, and then they have 2 classrooms at Eastmont. So we would have a separate portable for youth academy for our safe school students. And then we would have a separate portable for our home and hospital students. So, and that's currently what we're doing right now with the continuum of services. We're just replicating it.
Okay, I'm sorry, it was Mrs. Pedersen. You guys can't wear the same color. That's
I'm wearing one.
for our.
I'll put my
Anyway.
hand
Thank you.
on. First, I want to compliment you on this program even existing. I know you didn't create it by yourself, but the program is amazing. I didn't know it existed, and I'm one of those students that is benefiting. I have a granddaughter with severe emotional needs and has been put in youth academy, and it's been the best thing that of all the treatments she's gone to, and she's been to many, this has been the one that's made the biggest difference in her life, which makes a big difference in mine.
Yes.
So thank you.
Yes.
But we do have that issue of the mixture
Yes.
of the two groups, because I hear about
You
that.
hear about that.
I
Yes,
do.
You do.
I do. It's at the middle school situation. And they aren't interacting a whole lot with the regular students, but they do earn that privilege,
Yes, they do.
which is very motivating. They're very social creatures. And so she's had to work just about as hard as maybe some of your other kids to, I
Yes.
guess the rules are the same. Points on
We
everything.
try. Yes, we do. Yes.
And work your way
Yes.
back out. But I just want to compliment you on this program is beneficial, and it has made, like I said, more difference in our life than probably anywhere else we've been. And I think this is vital. If our students are going to find that emotional support, they don't have to be critical, but when they are, what are you going to do? Are you going to lose these kids to suicide? Are you going to have them drop out? Are you going to have them come back with a gun? I mean, it can be any and all of them. So this I know is the deepest we dip with our net, but those fish are worth saving. And it's been phenomenal. So first, may I compliment you about that? I see the need where they do need to be separated. And I think that this sharing, I think having all of the districts share in that actually makes sense. You know, that everybody chips in a piece of the FTE because it benefits all of them. Yeah. Otherwise, the impact will go through all of their communities. So mostly it's not so much a question as a compliment. I just really think that this is a vital resource that I doubt that very many of our community know even exist. And maybe that's appropriate because we don't really want the neighbors and even the students that are in the school don't necessarily know that they're in that program. Right? And that's the whole point. We want to integrate them back in. So thank you for the work that your team does. It's made a difference in our lives. So thank you.
And I just want to give a shout out to BJ Weller is really the individual that was behind the original inception of district case management. He modeled it after going and seeing a lot of different districts. And Colleen was actually the first facilitator of DCMT. And then when she went back out into a school, they're like, you get to be the director of federal programs and you get to be the DCMT facilitator. I'm like, yes. So anyway, so I'm grateful for the opportunity to continue the good work that was doing. So thank you. I just want to make sure that those individuals are recognized for their work. So yeah, no, you're great.
Okay, this is Tingy.
Thank you. Yeah, so I have just a few questions. You mentioned transportation is provided. How does that work?
I have a really awesome administrative assistant and she calls transportation and says, Wendy Dow needs the student transported here. Now, the trick is they can usually accommodate things. The problem is that sometimes the student is on the bus for a very long time. So what we want to keep in, so usually what I will do is I will reach out to her and say, I need 3 options of schools or I need 3 places. But with Youth Academy, because it has a reduced schedule, it doesn't interfere with their regular busing route. So they're able to accommodate that. When I have to move a student to a different school, then I have to be I have to work with transportation. We have to be a little more creative in that.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, a couple other questions. Is this something that you would want to start immediately, like as soon as it's approved for
No,
the
for
rest of the
next
school
school-
year?
next
It's
school
for
year.
next
Yep.
school year.
Yeah. Thank you for asking that.
And then my last question is, you said the goal is to get this, and I agree with, I mean, it's fantastic. I love how you guys are so focused on what can we do to help students and help them have successful experiences. And you mentioned that, you know, the goal is to get them back into regular school. What kind of supports are in place for the students when they achieve that goal? I guess I just picture that they're going to need a little
They do need they
extra
actually
at
do need
that
a lot.
point in time as well.
Yeah, so we usually will assign them like a check-in, check-out mentor, so that's tracking their attendance and meeting with them. Sometimes they're checking in with them even multiple times a day to see how they're doing. We always pair them with a social worker or a counselor. Sometimes they're paired up with a Hopeful Beginnings or a Project Connections therapist if the parent is amenable to that. And then we keep them on what we call DCMT review. So we're reviewing every single student that we have every 6 weeks. So we're making sure that those students still have that support. Now, if the school comes back and says, they're doing fine, like this was just a blip in their, like they just made a quick mistake and it's okay, then we can go ahead and exit them. And then the school usually will take it over in their student support team meetings instead. But for the most part, I think I've only exited like 4 students so far this year. So we're keeping them on that review and the schools report back and then we identify, do we need to change something? Because sometimes the kid will just fall back, into old habits. And so it's like, okay, we've got to get them back into this direction. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a first reading, and so we will look forward to bringing it back next meeting.
I'm excited.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you very much. Appreciate your time.
Okay, so now we are going to move on to item C, which is proposal to convert Monday, March 6, 2023 to a virtual learning day. Second reading action requested, and this is going to be presented by Leon Wilcox, Business Administrator.
Thank you, President Shill, board members. Last board meeting, you took action to convert 2 days for next school year into teacher preparation days at the end of the first and third quarters of the next school year. And you also had a request, is there something we can do this current school year as well? So that's our proposal for you tonight, and that is look at maybe making March 6th that day to make it a virtual learning day. And first thing is why are we proposing March 6th? We went through the calendar and you can see we just copied the district calendar off the website, and right there we said we feel like that's the best day. It's the Monday following parent teacher conferences. So parent teacher conferences are the Monday through Thursday of the 27th. Friday is a no student day, so the comp day. It should be noted that Tuesday, the 28th is the end of the trimester for K-5. Now, of course, next year
they line up with quarters, but it doesn't line up this year. March 17th is into the third quarter for our secondary schools. Keep in mind, so we're trying to mesh what would help the elementary teacher some and the middle school and the secondary teacher some. No perfect date, but we feel like this helps them each some, somewhat there. Again, I think ideally we'd have it right at the end of the trimester or at the end of the quarter for grading, but we feel like this is the best we can do at this point in time. If you did want to go ahead with this proposal, here are the employee expectations that we'd have. Employees are expected to be in the buildings or assigned work location. If there are exceptions, we'd ask them to be approved by the supervisor or building principal. Since it is a virtual day, teacher would have to be available for 2 hours for virtual consultation. There would be no online or synchronous learning. There could be asynchronous learning, but nothing synchronous. Of course, the virtual consultation could be by phone or Zoom or something like that. Of course, elementary schools, as they often do, could send home packets the previous week for kids to complete. And of course, secondary schools or even elementaries could put, assignments up on Canvas as well for that day. The remaining days outside the virtual consultation time would be used for grades, any grading and preparation. We'd also ask that no meetings be held that day. For the ESPs, we would be doing training. We have online modules that they can do training from, but they're able to do cleaning. We're mainly looking at our bus drivers and our kitchen workers. Of course, kitchen workers always need that cleaning time in their cafeterias and kitchens that we have trouble getting them through the regular calendar. But they could also be doing other support work. That would be for our contracted ones. The same opportunity would be given to our hourly ones. Many of our hourly workers, of course, have kids in this, have kids with us. And so lots of times they just prefer not to come in that day. So obviously they could just forego the compensation for that day and just not come in. But if they wanted to, we'd make sure they have training, cleaning, other support work they could do. One of the kickers is the approval process. Since it is, if you read down there, that's the code. We briefly went over that last time. The kicker is it would require action tonight. But if we waited till the next board meeting, we have to give 14 days notice. And if we waited till the next board meeting, that'd be on the 21st, we would not meet that date if we went with the March 6th date. So that would require action tonight. Again, and it also needs to be noted, it needs to be tied there with the 3B. Anything that circumstances within the LEA or a given school due to the COVID-19 pandemic, at least 14 days calendar days notice before the reallocated of instructional hours or school days. So this has to be tied to COVID. It's like everything in the world right now is still tied to COVID, right? So, yeah. So, I think my knee has been acting up lately and I'm tying that to COVID. I don't know how. Yeah. So that would be the issue there. Again, here's a possible board motion if you wanted to look at that as well. So take any questions, comments you may have.
Okay, I do have one comment that just came up from calendar committee, which I think the board should be aware of. And that is that on March 7th, that is the statewide ACT. So sophomores, freshmen, and seniors will not be attending school that day, just juniors. So I just wanted the board to be aware of that as we have a discussion. And Mr. Millerberg would like to go first.
Couple of questions, and hopefully I don't get too rattled. I want to start off with being tied to COVID. Okay? Tell me how this ties to COVID, really, not just some fluff answer that, works around.
Well, I think our teachers and everybody in this buildings are been under an enormous amount of stress this year. We've heard it from the prep time. We've heard it from that they're trying to, the student behaviors that we were talking about in the, during Hal's presentation, during Wendy's presentation. All that is impacts from COVID, we believe. And so just trying to give our teachers time to prepare because they've been working with such a broad range of continuum of students due to behaviors, due to absenteeism, due to other things, learning loss from 2-3 years back, that it's just trying to help them get up to speed there. So,
Because to me, and I know I don't have the educational background you do, but it feels like to me that I'm trying to be nice, okay? It doesn't come easy for me.
you don't need to try.
Feels like a lot of the problem we have with COVID and the additional pressure that teachers have is because we've had such a learning deficit that took place during that COVID period. And we all know, let there be light. Thank you. There we go. We know that nothing else came out of COVID. We know that kids learned better face to face.
Absolutely.
And I feel like what we're doing is we're taking another day of instruction away from our students, which will simply exacerbate the issue of the kids falling further behind. And so, and I think when you tie this to COVID, like you said you did, because of additional pressure, I think having the kids fall further behind creates additional pressure beyond what we already have.
Well taken. I would also argue that it will better prepare our teachers, give them the time they need to address these student needs moving forward for the last, during March, April, and May. The last 3 months of the year. Yeah, last trimester, if you will.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Pedersen.
Thank you for taking the suggestion to add a preparation day for teachers this year. I really think that mentally they could use it, and they obviously could use it physically to get work done. There is no day in an elementary teacher's life that we don't have things to do, and it's never done. You could pick any day you want and there'd be a day stuff that they could do. So it's not wasted time, and it's not just for the teachers. I know it takes away time from students, but because of the timing, I actually think it will be less impactful, because I know as a teacher that after you've had a long break, they don't all come back on time. So if they're out on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then we give them Monday, you're not really impacting a whole lot of learning, because a lot of the students, not a lot, but notice our attendance scores or numbers, they're likely not all going to be coming back anyway. But I think that the payoff for the teachers to feel a little bit more rested, a little more prepared, and be able to have time to work together. Because when we have work days, it's not just isolation all the time. We choose who we're going to go meet with, and our teaming within the building is extremely valuable. I have a question though. Is it possible, and it's just a question because I'm not against what you've done. Is it possible that we just throw out the virtual part of it, since it is over a long weekend, and we just start again on Tuesday? Because it's still tied into the same rules. And then teachers wouldn't have to prepare a packet. That doesn't we're creating a little bit more work so that they can have a day to do work. Just asking. I agree with the first one, but I'm just wondering, is there that possibility?
Obviously, you guys could prove what you want. We discussed this and we just felt like, well, it would be best for a virtual day. There could be some learnings, some packets going home and some Canvas courses. So that would essentially eliminate that, I guess, that second bullet there, all of that, if including the 2 sub bullets. But that's up to you. We'd essentially say they wouldn't be students could not they wouldn't be available for any consultation at that time, but that's up to you.
I think, just may I reply to that? You could still have the virtual, they could call in if they have concerns. And then, I mean, we're still working, but if they still wanted to have a consultation period, that could be provided by the schools if they wish to, without having to have packets.
We could do, yeah,
I just comment on that, Karen. I mean, sorry, President Shill, I think I would have serious concerns justifying an instructional day. I mean, we've utilized learner validation before, that's allowed in code, but not having those set hours, I think, I mean, the funding that would flow for that, I think would be for that day would then be in question if.
I think we'd still be okay with a virtual,
Yeah.
but it's just, yeah, we
It makes
felt
me
like
nervous.
there ought to be something, so, because we just felt like there ought to be something there for kids, to do. That was our thinking.
Okay, Mr. Edel and then Mrs. T.
So I don't have any issues with the virtual part, but I just had one concern, which is that it has the expectation of no meetings at all. And while I agree that the period should focus on teacher preparation time and that it shouldn't be used as a mega meeting day, I also think that there's a lot of merit in having administrators having the flexibility to help orient their staff and to do what they need to do on that end.
We'd just prefer no meetings, if they had to have a short, that would really be more for the teachers, if the bus drivers or something need to meet, we'd be okay with that, but yeah.
Well, and the concern from that comes from administrators I've heard from. We've already taken away time that they had with their staff. And again, while I am opposed to mega meetings on that day, to completely block it out, that would be my concern.
Mrs. Tingy.
Thank you. I support this concept of virtual day but like Mr. Millerberg, I've been struggling with, the result of COVID and that connection and what you said a little bit earlier about having the teachers have some time to kind of regroup and prepare for the end of the school year. I think if they do that with the goal in mind to have those to have a very energized last few months of the year. I mean, that's when our RISE tests or end of year testing is going on. That's, to just make sure that those last few months of learning is really quality learning, then to me, that is kind of a COVID recovery approach. So I feel a little bit more at ease with making the connection that way in my mind. And as far as the meetings, I noticed on there you say, prefer no meetings, but it's not a hard, fast no. And so, but I think it's that time, if, with the 2 hours, and so there's probably another 4.5 hours, right? Or
Yeah.
with lunch and whatever, 5 hours maybe.
They're 7.5 hours, well,
Yeah.
8 hours total. They're in the building there.
So yeah, that time can get eaten up really quickly if it's just, 15 minutes here, half hour there. So I think it's good to leave it what's best, but strongly encourage not to eat up that time.
Okay, so Mrs. Nybar is not here, and so she wanted me to state her opinion, and her opinion is she would like it to just not to be a virtual day, just to be, I guess, professional development day. Is that what we would call it then? A work day? Yeah. Okay, that is her opinion. So she does agree with Mrs. Pedersen on that. I would like to say my own opinion now. Well, Amanda, Mrs. Oaks, and then I will share my opinion.
I recognize the challenges with this on every side. I do think though, with how much we've heard from our teachers, especially in the superintendent listening tours, the distress that they're feeling and the frustration, I think it's important for us to be responsive to that. And so I'm supportive of doing this. The exact parameters of how that looks, I think there can be some flexibility to that depending on what's needed on a school by school basis. But I do want our teachers to feel like they've been heard. I think that's really important. We can't keep a school district functioning or moving forward without them. So.
Okay, I'm in favor of the virtual day. I do think it's really important for us to just show that we're listening. I mean, as we saw, employee satisfaction is low right now. And the superintendent has shared with us how every single time he goes to listening to our teachers are sharing how they are overworked, overloaded, all of that. So I just think it would go a long way. So I don't know if we're ready for a motion or we want to discuss this more. It's up to you guys. This has one question.
So does this require a motion on the part of the board? It does. Okay. And we've heard, is this the second reading? Okay.
So we talked about it, we didn't have it on the agenda last time, but we talked, it was brought up and it was discussed in the last board
Okay.
meetings. So
All right. So then I would like to make a motion to approve. Oh, okay. Thank you. Yes, thank you. To approve Monday, March 6th, 2023 to be a virtual learning day for students. Approve that all employees meet the expectations noted in the presentation and task the administration to begin communications with families and employees.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion to the motion?
I have a comment on the motion for that piece about the communication with families and employees. I hope that that's where we can message the importance of responding to teachers and the stresses and the concerns that they've been under this year, to instead of just notifying, oh, by the way, they decided to approve this random day to be a virtual day, that the real reason is clearly stated in that communication.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have a comment? I do have one other comment. I do appreciate you having the expectations in this presentation. In calendar committee, it also came up that administrators just wanted to know, like, what can we do? What is expected of teachers? Anyway, so this makes it very clear. So thank you very much.
Just a clarification.
Yes.
Just making sure. So we are voting that it will be a virtual day.
Yes, that is what the motion.
As it's written.
Yes, the
Just
motion is
clarifying
the
so that
virtual
people
day.
understand.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Yeah, it's what is written on board docs. Okay, any other comments? Mr. Miller?
And the kind of foggy area up there, that all employees will meet the expectations noted in the presentation. That's the outline that Leon is prepared for. No changes. Teachers are required to be there. There won't be meetings. Okay. Could we discuss a whole bunch going the other way?
Yeah, the motion ended up saying, yeah, what the expectations are on this presentation. Okay, any other comments? Okay, so seeing there are no more comments, I will call for a vote. So all in favor of the motion, should I repeat it? Yes. The motion to approve Monday, March 6, 2023 to be a virtual learning day for students. Approve that all employees meet the expectations noted in the presentation and task the administration to begin communications with families and employees. Okay, all in favor of that motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. There are only 6 of us here though, so I don't know if that probably needs to be noted in the minutes, but it's still unanimous for the 6th. Okay, thank you. Now we are going to go on to item D. And That is the strategic vision, high quality learning for focus area update, and is Dr. Robert Dowdell, Assistant Superintendent.
Thank you. My presentation disappeared. Oh, awesome. So I've reused some slides that you have seen before, and I did that intentionally so that board members Edel and Pedersen would see where I'm coming from in this presentation, since they haven't been here participating in the earlier discussions. So this is about Utah's POG and then CSD's POG. And that's kind of embarrassing to speak that way. It's the portrait of a graduate from Utah and then our own homegrown version. The portrait of a graduate from the state, from USBE, is as follows on the board, as I think most of you have reviewed that many times. And some of us went to training with USBE on the whole process they wanted us to go through. And this is one of the things that we read. And that is the USBE encourages all schools and districts throughout the state to develop their own portraits of a graduate. These documents will be helpful as education leaders continue to innovate for competency-based learning to improve outcomes in public schools by advancing student mastery of concepts and skills. And in that training, we were asked to consider reducing from 13 competencies found in Utah's portrait of a graduate down to somewhere between 4 and 6. So the high quality learning committee has looked at this. We've met several times to discuss what it could look like. Had some very good conversations. These graphics did not come from that committee, but we had a list, and I asked our communications department to put together some possible graphics just for consideration to see what it could look like. And then I would also share with you the 6 core competencies that we looked at. So first, scholars with a descriptor of driven by curiosity and diligently seeking out opportunities to learn. Innovators imagine, visualize, and demonstrate creative practices, innovative solutions, and artistic expression. Critical thinkers identify, evaluate, and analyze quality information to enable effective problem solving. This one, I forgot to include the S. It should be resilient learners. They're all plural. Persevere when faced with challenges and setbacks, even when we may not have a successful outcome, while learning from mistakes. Impactful citizens strengthen communities, state, and nation through leadership, hard work, initiative, determination, integrity, service, civic duty, and respecting the rights of others. And finally, collaborators respectfully listen and communicate ideas, perspectives, and experiences with others to accomplish shared goals while cultivating an inclusive community with accountability. So we spent quite a bit of time not only selecting the competencies, but also discussing, doing some wordsmithing. I recognize this is a recommendation to the board, so you could alter this, edit this in any way that you would like. But another graphic showing the same type of thing is also shown this way. There's also a paragraph at the top that kind of describes what we were trying to get at. And as a district, Canyon School District, encourage.
It's really tiny.
You know, glasses would help at this point. Scholars to develop and exhibit positive character traits such as curiosity, good citizenship, responsibility, perseverance, courage, and kindness. These skills are foundational to thinking creatively, critically, and collaboratively. They are essential for students to thrive in college and in the workplace. So that's close. I think I've made that part of that up. President Shield, did you want a little discussion maybe about these competencies and descriptors?
Yeah, sure. Board, if you have any questions or want to give your feedback. I'm kind of assuming this is a first reading since it's now in business meetings.
This is
So
the first one, yes.
yeah, this will be a first reading. So an update. Oh, okay. Okay. Mrs. Tingy?
Yeah, I just have to say, I was thrilled. When I saw this, it just all came together to me, and it's something that I've been hopeful that we could do here in Canyons for many, many years. So thank you to the committee and all the hard work. I would just kind of do a little wordsmithing grammar proposition here that you'd mentioned that they're all plural, but yet the title is Portrait of a Scholar. And I think it works if we take the S off of all of them.
Right. Good
Just
idea.
grammatically. And then on the resilient learner one, and again, this is just kind of wordsmithing, but I would maybe suggest that it would say persevere when faced with challenges, comma, setbacks, comma, and unsuccessful outcomes while learning from mistakes. I just think it's a little more
Right.
clear on the wording in that one. So
Yes.
I know we're not supposed to really wordsmith here, but
No.
those were the
No,
things that stood
go-
out to me.
Go
But
ahead.
well, but really, no, I was thrilled. I literally stood up and jumped up and down in my study when I saw this over the weekend. So
It
I
is
think it
interesting
looks
to do
fantastic.
wordsmithing with a room full of people who have a lot of great things to say. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Okay, Mrs. Oaks.
So I thought we had a lot of fun doing all of this. Like, it was very creative experience, it was wonderful. Lots of brainstorming, lots of changing words in and out, lots of, discussion about why a scholar rather than a graduate. And to Rick's credit, I mean, he was the one who came up with the idea of using the word scholar because of the various meanings that are associated with that. And I think it's fantastic. It really promotes the idea of a lifelong learner. I totally agree with you, Nancy. I think changing the plural to singular makes sense. And as a result of that, under scholars, I think we need to do some wordsmithing or, there's some word changes that need to change as a result of having it in the singular rather than in the plural. But it feels a little awkward when we read scholar driven by curiosity and diligently seeking opportunities to learn, maybe diligently seeks, just some minor things. But I love generally the content that we have here and the intention. I think it's awesome.
Okay, Mr. Edel.
Yeah, I love what this promotes. I love the focus on the scholar. I love that this is something that we're helping to develop them for their whole life. I think that's really fantastic. And I'm not going to nitpick, but I know that the committee will work to refine this. And so kudos on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Pedersen.
I love this as well. And thank you for sharing the graphics. I really think it helps put it in visual form. I'm a visual learner for the most part, and I love it. The part that I probably love the most is the resilient learner. A lot of times when people are talking about students preparing for the outcome, we don't talk about the strugglers, the ones that have had to climb the mountains that not everyone's had to face, and yet they're successful. So I love that we have included the concept of a resilient learner, because a resilient learner can do anything. And I really appreciate that being in there and citizenship. I think that's vital to our society right now. There is no citizenship being exhibited by many of the people in society. So I appreciate the core competencies that the board and the committee have come up with. It's excellent. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Milleberg.
Bob, this is so cool. Yeah. And Rick, you're the one that said scholar, not graduate.
Well, just to Amanda's point, I think to me, the more that I look at the word graduate, it kind of signals an end.
Yeah,
And
where I was coming from.
right. And to me, scholar just feels like it really is about a lifetime of learning, and that's what it should be.
I read through all 6 of those almost triangles, whatever you want to call those, circle segments. And every one is a life skill. And what that communicates to me is we are sending our graduates out into the world prepared with life skills. So very, very well done, very well thought out. Thank you.
It was really fun to watch the passion of all of the people on the committee. They seemed to have different favorites during the process, and they were emotional about pushing for their ideas. And I think it really was quite cool to watch it come together in an agreement. And the last time we met, it really did come together nicely, I believe.
So I just want to add that I was on the committee as well, and it was a really fun process. And I will say it took many meetings. This was not, it was a lot of wordsmithing, but I really think we landed in a good place. And I do want to say Steve Wrigley would be very happy right now because he has wanted this. I think he's wanted a portrait of a graduate, well, portrait of a scholar for our district since before the state even came up with theirs. So we may have to send this to him. Anyway, I do like the graphics too. I think the graphics are great. So thank you for that. And I just really appreciate all the comments of the board members. I would like Nancy to send that language. Can you send that language to Bob, your changes?
That'd be great.
And of course, any other board member, if you have any input, please send it and we'll talk about it at our next meeting.
And I have one more slide.
Oh, one more. Okay, go ahead.
So we also talked about one more thing, and these are the kind of the summary conclusions about attendance concerns. And you saw a lot of the data earlier with Dr. Sanderson. And really what it comes down to is the last statement below, that the committee wanted to request that the policy committee consider revisions to policy 500.35, creating stronger district-wide attendance requirements. We have some guidelines in our current policy, but we don't really have anything that pulls us all together with some stricter guidelines. And the request is to have that policy committee take a look at that.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Teeny? Yes.
Sorry, as a member of the policy committee, I think the committee would be happy to take that assignment. And interesting, there was, the legislative session is going on, and there was a bill that was released yesterday, I believe, that talked about developing stronger attendance policies at the LEA level. So, depending if that bill passes or not, either way, I think it's good practice that we look at that.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, just a question to the board. I mean, I think this is something that we would eventually vote on, right? That we would eventually take action on.
Yeah, if it goes through the policy committee, they do the legwork and then bring it back to the board as a revision of a policy.
And then I was talking about the portrait of a scholar. But thank you. I mean,
Well, I
yes,
get
we
too
need that
excited about policy committees.
Once
The
someone
world
says
revolves around
policy.
policy committee.
Okay. So I think the board needs to approve this, but do we not feel it's quite ready? Well, I guess we'll bring it back.
I think there are a few edits, and I'd also invite all other suggestions to come forward for a second reading.
Okay, so Nancy,
I
do you
mean,
have a comment?
this item isn't listed for
Yeah,
action.
no, but I just mean, I'm
bring it
trying to
back,
talk
yeah.
about the process, to bring it back. Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
a comment to that too. So I think one of the things in development, in those 4 focus areas are indicators. So we still, and every committee is doing fantastic work. And I think on the 21st or in a meeting coming up, I would recommend that we go back to looking at not just the indicators that are in the tenants, but maybe there are indicators that fall within those 4 focus areas that you want to add. That's a yes and that maybe align, to portrait of a scholar, as well as some of those other themes that are emerging in those groups.
Okay, great. Thank you, Superintendent. So thank you, Dr. Gowdo. We appreciate you, and we'll have you bring this back. So let's just go ahead with staff comments. Superintendent report first.
Okay, real brief. We visited the facilities department today as part of the listening tour and just want to give them a shout out and thank you for all they do to keep our buildings the way they are. I mentioned to them, their work really reflects our commitment to our students and our employees, and every day that we get to show up in buildings that are well maintained and clean, it sends a message to our students and to our community that it matters. And so I just want to share our appreciation for their work. And just to comment on tonight, there are certain board meetings when the chemistry and the flow of the work really is making a difference and the needle moves. And I don't know how you all feel, but tonight a lot got done. And you think about the spectrum of service and the spectrum of what we provide to our students. Tonight, we responded, and to those in greatest need and those that are accelerating. I just, it's very, very humbling and impressive to see all the great work that's happening. And I want to, just thank our administrative team for their dedicated work along with the board. And just as mentioned, feeling the synergy and the chemistry that happens. It doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, it's pretty special and magical to be part of. So I just want to say thank you to everybody that's here tonight for that.
Okay, Leon Wilcox, Business Administrator.
Yes, thank you, President Schill. Just a couple quick things. President Schill and we had Tom here and Jeff and myself. We went to a breakfast back a few weeks ago where Brighton High's new building was awarded one of the outstanding, I think it was the outstanding K-12 project this past year. So congratulations to everybody who worked on that. It's a big accomplishment. And last thing I just want us to talk about is just snow for a quick moment. We've had a lot of it this year, as you know. Rick, Jeff, and myself have had way too many unhealthy exchanges at 4 a.m. on snow. Yes. But I'd like to just a shout out to a few people I would like to thank. Well, of course, Rick and Jeff, Jeremy, Matt, who gets up and drives with me on driving the roads to see how they look that early because we have to make that call just after 5. Big shout out to our AFMs who are there clearing the snow, the sidewalks to get in, our contractors who clear our parking lots, our bus drivers who traverse the roads during this weather storm, and our families for being patient with us with some of the late arrivals, as well as our school administration. So we're grateful for the snow. We all hope to have a shower this summer. Looks like it may happen, but we hope it just continues, but a big thank you to those who've been working with us this year.
Okay, thank you. So to start board comments tonight, I would like to read a statement. At this time, the Board of Education wishes to make a statement about the recent loss of a Jordan High student in a tragic auto pedestrian accident involving a Canyons District school bus. Members of the Board of Education extend our deepest sympathy for all those who are experiencing difficult emotions at the loss of Jennifer Flores Diaz, a beautiful student who is gone from our sights, but never from our hearts. As a Canyons family, our hearts beat as one in this difficult time, and we're grateful for the support that has been extended to all of Jennifer's loved ones, including her peers and teachers. We also thank all the district and school staff, police officers, medical personnel, and members of the community who have responded in this incident. They have shouldered a heavy burden, and we appreciate the tenderness, professionalism, and care they have shown in such a heartbreaking moment. We truly will never get used to the loss of a child in our community and wish much comfort and courage to the entire community as we grieve together. Okay, we will now go to board comments, and I will start with Mr. Edel.
Thank you. So this has been a productive few weeks for me as I've been getting oriented with the school district. I've had tours out Mount Jordan Middle School, Crescent Elementary, Jordan High School. I did a CTE tour that included Jordan, Alta, and CTEC. Today I visited Diamond Ridge and Entrada and Jordan Valley. I was also able to attend an SCC meeting at Mount Jordan Middle School, attend a Human-Centered Supports Committee meeting, and attend Fiddler on the Roof at Albion Middle School. I've been able to encounter a number of amazing people, and I want to thank the administrators who took some time out to introduce me to their schools and to what they have. I was also able to make 2 visits to the Capitol during this time as well. I also want to give a shout out to Mrs. Stewart at Quail Hollow. When I was attending Fiddler on the Roof, one of the students was talking to me and completely unsolicited told me how amazing her teacher was. And so kudos to her. And then I just want to say that we all know the world is changing and we need to be leading the way to prepare our students for the future. We don't have 10 to 20 years to implement new changes. It already takes 4 to 13 years for any changes we make to come to their realization and to have an effect. And so as we look at our strategic plan, as we look at the future, as we look at our students, I hope that we will all work in haste to prepare our students, our community, our state, and our country for the future. Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Oaks.
Sorry, I know this was partially discussed in study session, but I have spent a lot of time up at the legislature over the last few weeks, discouraging few weeks, but and spent some time on the Joint Legislative Committee with USBA. I really appreciate the work that Charlie and Susan have been doing up there. This has been an exhausting session and we're not even halfway done. I also attended Operations Subcommittee. We had a really good conversation there, and this morning attended a career fair at Corner Canyon High School. Want to give a shout out to our CTE folks. It was awesome, and the employers that came to present to the students were first rate. I learned a lot and was really excited, and I appreciate the willingness of our community to step forward and provide those resources to our students. One thing I have been thinking about in light of this past month on January 27th, it was the International Day for Holocaust Remembrance. And I've been reading some articles that apparently there are states in our country, more conservative states, that have started to say that every issue that's taught in the classroom, you have to teach a diversity of views on it. And apparently the Holocaust has been wrapped into this, which is deeply concerning to me on so many levels. I have an uncle and a great uncle who helped liberate concentration camps at the end of World War II. And the impact that that had on their life long term was completely devastating. They dealt with a lot of PTSD for years, and I heard them talk about it. This is an issue that cannot be taught, or it's not an issue. I should clarify this. One of the articles I read said the Holocaust is not an issue, it is a fact. And I think it's really important that we as a school district consider that in the way that it's taught. And I would be interested in some point in the future, just kind of having some sort of a chance to review how a subject that is so profoundly important in our world history is being taught, and whether or not we're doing a healthy job of teaching that to our students so that they really understand its impact and its importance in retaining that in memory and understanding the issues. So anyway, that I know that's a heavy subject, but I think it's something that needs to be discussed from time to time. So I really appreciate all the work of the administration. There's so many good things happening in Canyons, and I thank you for that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Milberg.
I don't want to bore you with all the different places and things and stuff, but there's just a couple that I want to make mention of. Last Friday, and I don't know how I knew this, last Friday was National school crossing guard day. And I was up early that morning and on my way to the gym, and just happened to stop by two crossing guards that I see every morning that I drive past. Stopped and wish them a happy school crossing day, and press a little something in their hands and say thank you for keeping our kids safe. So I am just amazed at how many moving parts there are to make a school district run. Many of these items come to the forefront. Many of the items don't belong in the forefront, and in fact, they should be almost invisible. I had the opportunity a couple weeks ago to attend the National School Response and Safety Convention held in Las Vegas. Those that were there, I think there were 6 of us that were there. Very worthwhile, very good ideas came out of that, and there are some of those things that the general public will never know. I hope. So, I think the idea of keeping our students safe is a sacred trust, and I really appreciate those who are working diligently to make that happen. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Teeny.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a busy few weeks since we last met, and I also won't go over everything that I participated in, but just hit a few highlights. I want to mention the Canyoneering Academy evening that was held at Jordan High for our multi-language students and their families. And I might have mentioned that before, but it has had such an impact on me. And this afternoon or this morning, I was up at the Capitol giving some of our students a tour of the Capitol, and as they were having an experience there, and someone, not a student, but one of the chaperones or the parents that were there with them asked me the question, what is the biggest challenge that public ed is facing? And, you know, a whole bunch of things ran through my mind, and what I ended up how I ended up answering that question is the fact that so many people making decisions about public education don't have a clear understanding of what public education is, what public education does, and what public education is expected to do. And that disconnect, to me, I think that's one of the biggest challenges and that we're facing. There's a whole lot of other stuff that's peripheral to that, but I think if we can get people into our schools, help people understand really what's happening, that will go a long way. And some of the things that are really happening in our schools, I was able to attend Canyon View. They had a science night, and that was so much fun. And if anyone's ever taken ivory soap, it's got to be the pure ivory soap, put a little chunk of it on a paper plate in the microwave and see what happens. I'm pretty sure that a faculty room at Canyon View still smells like ivory soap, but yeah. And then Granite Elementary had their STEAM night with so many fun activities and such a good turnout. And then yes, the Albion Middle School play Fiddler on the Roof was delightful. It was so great. And then I just also want to mention, I know in recognitions, the Brighton High drill team were one of the finalists in the state championships, but they were also awarded the sportsmanship award. And I thought that was really significant for them to, from their peers. That's how that was selected. It's from the peer teams that they were competing with. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Pedersen.
It's not very easy to be the last one. Monk can probably relate to that because you were always at this very end. It's been a very busy couple of weeks. My husband keeps asking me, so what's on the plan today? And I've always got someplace to be. I visited a number of my schools and had tours with my principals. It's wonderful to see how proud they are of their buildings and of their students and of their teachers. And even the sweepers, they stop and compliment them. So I love seeing the support that the schools are providing for one another and for their students. I really enjoyed being able to go over to see Fiddler on the Roof at Albion as well. And it was impressive to me how many students were able to be included in that production. It was a very large number of students, and yet it moved so seamlessly. And they were so excited and they did such a great job. And so kudos to all of everyone who was involved there. I just had a wonderful night enjoying the talents of those students. I attended as well the Canyoneering Academy, and I found that was so beneficial to the parents to be able to get information about additional supports for schools for their students in either work-related careers or being able to get ready for college and be able to get that information in their own language. That was unbelievable. They were happy. And when you do these kinds of things for bilingual students, the whole family comes. We're talking the clan. It's not just mom and dad or mom and the kid. It's grandma, grandpa, uncles, aunts, and all the cousins. Everybody, it's a family event, and it was wonderful. They were bonding with each other. They were bonding, and they didn't even have to speak their own language. They were just happy to be there, and I loved how well attended it was. I'm positive they're going to have to expand it to more than one night just to be able to meet those needs. But I just enjoyed the energy and the excitement and the fact that we're providing, again, another need. We're providing something that has not been provided to them before. This is the second time it had been offered, and the first time for the whole district. And I enjoyed so much being there. In fact, I got caught in the lunchroom talking to families, visiting with them, and then going to the auditorium and hearing the presentation. And it's fun to hear them say it in English, then say it in Spanish, and then English, and then Spanish. And then all the interpreters standing around. And I had a great time talking with them and how they got to the positions that they're into. I am just so proud of being a part of Canyon School District and knowing how many places we touch. You know, I don't think none of our community really realizes the reach that we have and the good that we do. And I am just so proud to be part of Canyons. Are we perfect? No, but we're trying. And we're getting better and better as we go along. And if there's mistakes, we're willing to admit them and move on, get them fixed, do what we need to do. And I'm just so pleased that I get to be a part of that and be able to see what's been happening in our district. Talking to legislatures. They listened. We all went up to the legislature and chatted with some of the House of Representative people, and they listen to individuals and take more weight from what we say as a community, an education community particularly, than they may take from the group that represents us. They do listen to them, but we have more weight. And it's nice to see them as people. And I think it's nice that they see us as individual people. So I enjoyed those opportunities that I've had to be involved with the legislature. And it's just a treat to be able to be, I mean, it sounds funny, but I appreciate my constituents who gave me the opportunity to be on this board. I hope that I can return the favor and do good things for our district and be a good part of the team. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I have done a lot of things and been at a lot of fun activities. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things that were my favorite. First of all, my two favorite things I have done the last few weeks is, first of all, I did mock interviews with Brighton High School students as part of CTE, their CTE class. And that was just really fun to interact with the students. And I was really impressed with them. They did just a great job, and they were very passionate and were well spoken, and it was just a really fun opportunity. Also, I don't think this was mentioned. Brighton High School had the feeder luncheon. Did you mention that? Okay. I didn't think you did. Anyway, which is just a really fun tradition. I mean, it has been going on. Nancy started it and it is still going on. So It was a wonderful tradition. All the principals are there, all the SEC chairs, all the PTA presidents from all the feeders. And we got to speak a little bit. They had some questions, but the main thing we ended up talking about was the legislature. And those parents got really fired up about HB 215. So it was great. Like I think that's important for us to let our parents know what is happening at the legislature. So that was really fun. And I also just enjoyed human-centered supports. I really am loving our strategic planning committees, and I just feel like so much work is getting done there in those committees. And so thank you for all the administrators that are leading those. And so Mrs. Nybar, it is your turn if you want to speak. Otherwise, the meeting is adjourned. But yeah, she just walked in, so we'll have her give her comments.
Thank you. And thank you for excusing me tonight. I went and saw my son play. We won by 3 points. And you only get so many of those games, as we all know. Just quickly, I wanted to first thank all those who prepared that study session for us. A lot of work went into that, and I appreciated that. As far as what's going on at the legislation, I'm grateful for the conversations we had with Senator Spenlove yesterday, and for some commitment there towards supplemental kindergarten. I was at Willow Springs talking to our principal there. And when we're talking about the needs that parents have and how popular those programs are, she said within 1 minute, there were already 15 people that enrolled at that window when we started at 10 a.m. just in her school. And that was just within the first minute. So I'm grateful that we have some support there. I also wanted to express how excited I am to have more implementation of the strategic plan, especially within the area of high quality learning. I met with Chip Watts along with Miss Oakes, talking about the preparations they need for this next year with their schedule and FTE, and the topic came up about the courses that we offer, and hope to see in the future that we make some innovations as far as our course catalog goes. We have some neighboring districts that have a lot of options with course catalog and courses that can be offered even at the middle school level. And I think it goes right along with our strategic plan as far as providing pathways for our students to feel success with different types of topics and learning and things like that. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to in the future. In study session, we talked about school community council updates. I'm really looking forward to the land trust plans and the TSSP plans and how they're going to be looking at spending along with what we've talked about with high quality learning and what some of our success indicators are in impact statements. So thanks to Susan and Charlie for all the hours they're spending up at the Hill, and I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think the board has concluded our work, and I will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you. Very